You've found the Stealth Podcast. Where are you watching from? What time is it there? Subscribe and comment to support us. Thanks. Let's begin. My name is Elliot Mercer. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Tucson, Arizona. After working 5 straight years without a real vacation at my engineering firm, I finally decided to take my converted Sprinter van on the epic Pacific Northwest road trip I'd been planning in my head for years. I'd spent nearly 2 years customizing my van, installing solar panels, a compact kitchen setup, and a surprisingly comfortable full-size bed. My Instagram followers had watched the entire build process, but what they didn't know was how desperate I was to escape my life for a while. The Arizona heat had been suffocating that summer, pushing past 110 degrees most days, and I couldn't wait to feel the cool, damp air of the Oregon forests. My route would take me through some of the most beautiful landscapes in the state, with Crater Lake being my first major destination. I'd studied maps and forums for months, learning about the hidden spots where I could safely park overnight without being hassled. Vanlife forums were full of stories about perfect boondocking spots, and occasional warnings about locals who didn't take kindly to outsiders. I'd been on the road for 3 days when I crossed into Oregon, feeling the immediate shift in the air as pine trees replaced desert scrub. The winding roads through the mountains felt like they were washing away months of stress. My college buddy Marcus lived in Portland and had promised to meet me at Crater Lake for a weekend of hiking before I continued north. We hadn't seen each other in years, but we'd kept in touch, and I was looking forward to catching up over beers beside the deepest lake in America. The drive to Crater Lake took longer than expected, with road construction forcing detours through towns so small they barely registered on my GPS. In one of these towns, Oak Ridge, I think it was called, I stopped for gas and supplies. The convenience store was cramped and dimly lit, with dusty shelves holding items that looked like they hadn't been restocked in months. The cashier, an older man with leathery skin and piercing blue eyes, stared at me with unconcealed suspicion as I gathered my items. "You heading up to the lake?" he asked, his voice raspy from what I assumed were decades of cigarettes. When I nodded, he made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a cough. "Weather report says there's a storm coming. Might want to reconsider." I thanked him for the warning, but explained I was meeting a friend. As he handed me my change, his fingers lingered on mine a moment too long. Folks go missing up there sometimes, especially when they don't know the area. Something in his tone made the hair on my arms stand up, but I shrugged it off as small-town unfriendliness toward tourists. By the time I reached the park entrance, the sun was already sinking behind the mountains. The ranger at the booth looked tired as she handed me a map, pointing out where overnight parking was strictly prohibited. "We've had some incidents with overnight campers recently," she said vaguely. "Just stick to designated areas, please." I assured her I would, though I had already researched a secluded Forest Service road just outside the park boundary where vanlifers had reported peaceful nights without ranger visits. I found Marcus waiting at the visitor center parking lot, leaning against his Subaru with 2 beers in hand. Seeing his familiar face was like a shot of adrenaline after days of solo driving. "Dude, you made it," he called out, passing me an IPA from some local Oregon brewery. As we caught up, I noticed he kept looking around nervously, his eyes scanning the tree line. When I asked if everything was okay, he just smiled too quickly and said, "Yeah, just some weird stories about this place lately. Nothing to worry about." I should have pressed him further then. Maybe things would have turned out differently if I had. That night, Marcus and I found my planned boondocking spot about 2 miles outside the park boundary, a small clearing off a rarely used Forest Service road. The tall pines created a natural barrier that made the van nearly invisible from the main road. "Smart choice," Marcus said, though something in his voice seemed off. As we set up camp chairs outside the van and cracked open more beers, Marcus finally told me what had been bothering him. Apparently, 3 hikers had gone missing in the area over the past 6 months. The official story blamed it on inexperience and the treacherous terrain, but locals were whispering about something else. "They're calling it the Crater Lake Collector," Marcus said, his voice dropping to nearly a whisper despite us being alone in the woods. "Some say it's a deranged hunter who lives off the grid. Others think it's something not exactly human." He laughed nervously, taking a long pull from his beer. I rolled my eyes at the obvious attempt to freak me out, but I couldn't deny the chill that ran down my spine. The forest around us suddenly seemed darker, the spaces between trees deeper and more mysterious. Marcus checked his watch and stood abruptly. I should get back to my campsite before it gets too late. The rangers locked the gates at 10. After Marcus left, I locked myself in my van and tried to fall asleep, but every crack of a branch or rustle of leaves jolted me awake. Around 2 a.m., I was scrolling through my phone when a notification popped up, no service. Odd, since I'd had at least one bar earlier. That's when I noticed the temperature had dropped dramatically. My breath formed small clouds inside the van, and frost was beginning to form on the windows. In August, I pulled my sleeping bag tighter and told myself it was just a weird mountain weather phenomenon. The tapping started an hour later, light at first, like fingernails against the metal exterior of the van. It moved systematically around the vehicle, stopping at each window for a few seconds before continuing. I told myself it was just branches in the wind, but when I checked my weather app, still cached on my phone despite no service, it showed completely still conditions. The tapping grew more insistent, and then paused completely outside the back doors. That's when I heard what sounded like my name being whispered, Elliot, in a voice that was almost, but not quite, like Marcus's. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I'd spent the remainder of the night huddled in my driver's seat, keys in the ignition, ready to flee at a moment's notice. The sun finally broke through the trees, illuminating a landscape that seemed impossibly normal and peaceful. There were no footprints around my van, no evidence of whatever had circled my vehicle during the night. I tried calling Marcus, but my phone still showed no service. I decided to drive to our planned meeting spot at the Cleetwood Cove Trail, the only path that leads down to the lake's edge. Marcus wasn't there. I waited 2 hours, growing increasingly concerned as he didn't show and didn't answer texts that wouldn't send. Finally, a park ranger passed by, and I flagged her down to ask if she'd seen him. The look on her face changed when I mentioned his name. "Your friend checked out of his campsite early this morning," she said slowly. "Left in quite a hurry according to the entrance log." That didn't sound like Marcus at all. We'd planned this meetup for months. The ranger must have noticed my confusion because she lowered her voice. "Listen, we're not supposed to talk about this, but there's been some strange activity in the park lately." She led me to a quieter spot away from the handful of tourists. The missing hikers, they all reported hearing someone call their names the night before they disappeared. My blood ran cold as I remembered the voice outside my van. And they all stayed in areas where camping isn't permitted. I didn't tell her about my technically illegal boondocking spot, but she seemed to read it on my face. "Be careful," she said simply, before walking away. I spent the rest of the day hiking alone, constantly looking over my shoulder, the breathtaking blue waters of Crater Lake doing little to ease my growing sense of dread. That evening, I decided to move to an official campground despite the cost and restrictions. As I drove toward the park entrance, my van suddenly sputtered and died, the engine cutting out completely on a particularly isolated stretch of road. I coasted to the shoulder, the towering pines creating premature darkness around me. When I popped the hood, I discovered that several wires had been cut cleanly, not frayed or broken, but cut with something sharp. Someone had sabotaged my vehicle while I was hiking. With darkness falling fast and no cell service, I was stranded. I grabbed my flashlight and emergency pack, locked the van, and started walking toward where I thought the ranger station would be. The forest at night was a different world entirely. My flashlight beam seemed swallowed by the darkness, barely illuminating a few feet ahead. The well-maintained park road should have been easy to follow, but somehow I kept finding myself veering onto smaller paths without realizing it. After an hour of walking, I had to admit the horrible truth. I was lost. That's when I spotted light filtering through the trees ahead, the warm glow of windows in what appeared to be a small cabin. Relief flooded through me as I hurried toward it, already rehearsing how I'd explain my situation to whoever lived there. The cabin was rough-hewn but solid, smoke curling from a stone chimney. I knocked on the door, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. A minute passed with no response, though I could hear movement inside. I knocked again, louder this time, and called out that my van had broken down. Finally, the door creaked open to reveal an elderly woman with long silver hair and the deepest wrinkles I'd ever seen etched into a human face. "You shouldn't be out in these woods after dark," she said without preamble. Her eyes, surprisingly sharp and clear in her aged face, studied me with unsettling intensity. She reluctantly invited me in, introducing herself as Agnes. The cabin's interior was cluttered but cozy, with walls covered in what I initially thought were artistic photographs, but on closer inspection were news clippings, dozens of them, yellowed with age, all about missing persons. Agnes noticed me staring and smiled thinly. "Local history," she said. "I've lived here 60 years. Seen a lot of people come to the lake. Not all of them leave." She busied herself making tea on an ancient wood stove, and against my better judgment, I accepted the steaming mug she offered me. The tea had a bitter, herbal taste that immediately made my tongue tingle. Agnes watched me drink with an intensity that made me increasingly uncomfortable. The Klamath people believed the lake was a battleground between the chief of the above world and the chief of the below world, she said suddenly. They warned that anyone who looked upon the lake with impure intentions would be claimed by it. I nodded politely, though alarm bells were ringing in my head. The room had begun to spin slightly, and I realized with growing horror that whatever was in that tea was affecting me strongly. I tried to stand but found my legs wouldn't cooperate. "What did you?" I couldn't finish the sentence as my tongue felt swollen. Agnes smiled that thin smile again. "Those who disappear around the lake don't all die," she said, her voice suddenly sounding distant. "Some are chosen. The lake has been thirsty lately." Through my increasingly blurred vision, I saw her open a trapdoor in the floor that I hadn't noticed before. A cold draft wafted up, carrying the unmistakable smell of water, not fresh water, but the stagnant smell of something that never sees sunlight. With the last of my strength, I toppled sideways off my chair, knocking over a kerosene lamp in the process. The glass shattered and flames immediately caught on the dry wooden floor. Agnes shrieked, momentarily distracted by the rapidly spreading fire. I crawled toward the door, every movement a supreme effort against whatever drug was coursing through my system. Smoke filled the small cabin quickly, and through my delirium, I heard Agnes not fleeing but descending into the trapdoor, chanting something in a language I didn't recognize. The flames provided the surge of adrenaline I needed to reach the door and tumble outside into the cold night air. Somehow, I staggered through the forest, guided only by blind panic and the distant glow of the burning cabin behind me. The drug was making me hallucinate now. Trees seemed to reach for me with gnarled branches, and I could swear I heard voices calling my name from every direction. I crashed through underbrush, fell down slopes, and splashed through icy streams. At some point, I realized I was heading downhill, always downhill, being drawn inexorably toward what I somehow knew must be the lake. Part of me wanted to fight this pull, to climb back upward toward the road, but my body refused to change course, as if following some silent command. Dawn found me standing at the edge of Crater Lake, its famous blue waters now looking black and bottomless in the early morning light. I had no memory of the final hours of my journey, no idea how I'd navigated miles of forest in the dark while drugged. My clothes were torn, my body covered in scratches and bruises, and I wasn't alone. A semicircle of people stood silently along the shoreline, 7 of them, spaced evenly, all staring out at the water. With horror, I recognized Marcus among them, his face blank and expressionless. None of them acknowledged my arrival, though they must have heard me crashing through the underbrush. "Marcus," I croaked, my throat raw from smoke and exertion. He didn't respond, didn't even blink. Looking closer at the others, I realized they all shared the same vacant expression, the same unnatural stillness. An older man in hiking gear, a young woman with a camera still hanging around her neck, a park ranger in uniform, all standing like statues. These must be the missing people, I realized with dawning horror. Not dead, but somehow changed. And now Marcus was one of them. My instinct was to run to him, shake him, try to wake him from whatever trance held him, but something kept me rooted to the spot. The lake's surface began to ripple, though there wasn't a breath of wind. The ripples expanded outward from the center, growing larger until they became visible waves crashing against the shore. A low humming filled the air, vibrating in my chest and making my teeth ache. The semicircle of people suddenly moved in perfect unison, each taking one step forward into the lake. "No!" I screamed, finally breaking free of my paralysis and lunging toward Marcus. I grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back, but his skin was ice cold and hard as marble. He turned his head robotically to look at me, and what I saw in his eyes was no longer my friend. "The lake has chosen," he said in a voice that didn't sound entirely human. "It feeds on intention. You came seeking escape. Now you will escape forever." The others were now waist deep in the water, moving with mechanical precision. I refused to let go of Marcus, trying desperately to drag him back toward shore, but it was like trying to move a statue. He continued forward, pulling me with him into the frigid water. My feet slipped on the rocky bottom, and suddenly we were both fully submerged, the shocking cold driving the air from my lungs in a burst of bubbles. Underwater, something changed. Marcus's face softened, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. For one brief moment, I saw fear and awareness in his eyes. He was in there, trapped somehow. He mouthed what looked like "run" before his expression hardened again. With a strength born of desperation, I kicked away from him, fighting my way back to the surface and gasping for air. The others had all disappeared beneath the waves, leaving only expanding circles that quickly smoothed back to an unnatural stillness. I crawled back on his shore, retching lake water, knowing I had seconds at most before whatever force had taken them came for me again. I ran, up the steep crater wall, following what I prayed was a trail and not another hallucination. My lungs burned, my muscles screamed, but terror drove me forward and upward. I didn't stop when I reached the rim, didn't pause when I finally hit a paved road. I just kept running until a startled family in an RV found me staggering along the highway, delirious and raving about the lake that takes people. They drove me to the ranger station, where my wild story was met with skepticism and concern about my physical state. Search parties found no trace of Agnes or her cabin, no evidence of the people I claimed to have seen walk into the lake. My van was discovered where I'd left it, the engine starting perfectly when the ranger turned the key. They blamed carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty heater in my van, suggested the stress of finding Marcus gone triggered some kind of psychotic episode. The missing persons reports I found online matched the people I'd seen by the lake, but the authorities had rational explanations for each disappearance. I know what I saw. I know what happens at Crater Lake when darkness falls. And I know why its blue waters are the clearest in America. Nothing that enters its depths ever returns to cloud its surface. I left Oregon the day they released me from the hospital, driving south without stopping until Arizona's familiar heat welcomed me home. But sometimes, I still wake up in the night to the sound of water lapping against an unseen shore, and my name being called in a voice that's almost, but not quite, human. My name is Natalie Westbrook. I'm 28 years old, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The decision to escape the brutal Midwest winter came after my design firm laid off half its staff, including me, right before Christmas. With 3 months of severance pay and nothing holding me back, I channeled my desperation into opportunity and bought a used Ford Transit that I converted into a cozy mobile studio. The van wasn't perfect. It had rust spots along the wheel wells and the heater worked only when it wanted to. But after 6 weeks of DIY renovations, it became the first place that truly felt like home since my breakup with Daniel last spring. My plan was simple: drive west until I hit the Pacific, then follow the coast down to California, where I could pick up freelance work in San Francisco. Oregon's coastal highway had been on my bucket list for years, with its dramatic cliffs and fog-shrouded beaches. I'd researched all the spots where van travelers could park overnight, state parks during the week, Walmart parking lots when necessary, and the occasional boondocking spot on public land. What I hadn't expected was how quickly the Oregon winter would turn from picturesque to perilous, with rain that seemed to fall horizontally and wind that rocked my van like a cradle even when parked. I'd been on the road for 11 days when I reached Bandon, a small coastal town famous for its sea stacks, enormous rock formations rising from the ocean like the spires of a drowned cathedral. The forecast predicted a break in the storms, so I planned to spend 2 nights there, exploring the beaches and catching up on work. My college roommate Zoe had moved to Portland after graduation and insisted we meet up somewhere along the coast. "Don't you dare come through Oregon without seeing me," she texted, along with recommendations for the best coastal spots to park overnight. The town of Bandon seemed frozen in time, with a small historic district of weather-beaten buildings that looked like they belonged on a postcard from the 1950s. I parked temporarily near the harbor and wandered into a local cafe, desperate for real coffee after days of making do with instant in my van. The place was nearly empty except for an older couple and a man about my age sitting alone by the window, typing furiously on a laptop covered in stickers from national parks. The barista, a woman with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, narrowed her eyes when I mentioned I was passing through in my van. "You're not planning to stay at Devil's Kitchen, are you?" she asked abruptly, leaning across the counter. The name wasn't familiar. It wasn't on any of the Vanlife forums or maps I'd studied. When I shook my head, she seemed relieved. "Good. Some folks think it's a secret spot, but locals know better. Had a girl about your age disappear from there last spring." She lowered her voice. "They found her van, but never found her. Coast Guard said she probably got swept out by a sleeper wave, but..." She trailed off, glancing at the man with the laptop, who I noticed had stopped typing and was listening intently. He caught my eye and offered a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Don't mind Margot," he said, gesturing to the barista. "Every small town has its ghost stories." He introduced himself as Liam, a travel writer working on a guide to the Oregon coast. "If you're looking for a place to park overnight, I know all the safe spots." There was something compelling about him, not just his obvious good looks, but a kind of intensity that made me want to keep talking. Before I knew it, I'd agreed to meet him later for dinner, where he promised to share his insider knowledge of the area. After exploring the beach all afternoon, marveling at the massive rocks punctuating the shoreline like nature's skyscrapers, I met Liam at a small seafood restaurant overlooking the harbor. The conversation flowed easily as he shared stories about his 3 years on the road. "The freedom is addictive," he said, his eyes animated. "But the isolation can get to you." I knew exactly what he meant. As the evening wore on, he mentioned a special spot just north of town. It's called Whisper Cove by the locals. Perfectly legal for overnight parking, amazing sunrise views, and hardly anyone knows about it. When he offered to lead me there, alarm bells should have rung in my head. Instead, I heard opportunity, exactly the authentic experience I'd been looking for when I started this journey. I followed Liam's faded blue Jeep along increasingly narrow coastal roads as darkness fell, the headlights illuminating sheets of rain that had begun to fall again despite the forecast. We turned onto an unmarked gravel road that wound through dense, wind-twisted shore pines before emerging onto a small clearing atop a cliff. The view would have been spectacular in daylight, but now all I could see was the distant flashing of what might have been a lighthouse and the ghostly white of waves crashing far below. "Home for the night," Liam announced cheerfully when I rolled down my window. "I'll park over there to give you privacy. Breakfast at sunrise? The view is worth getting up for." I should have found it strange that he planned to sleep in his Jeep rather than drive back to wherever he was staying, but I was too captivated by the wildness of the location to question it. After he parked in a spot partially hidden by trees, I secured my van against the strengthening wind, double-checking the locks before settling in for the night. The rain drummed on the roof, oddly comforting as I scrolled through photos I'd taken that day. I texted Zoe, "Made it to Bandon, meeting you tomorrow?" But the message stayed undelivered. No signal, not unusual in remote coastal areas, but it triggered a vague unease I couldn't shake. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by violent gusts that rocked the van and strange sounds that might have been branches scraping metal, or something else entirely. Around 3 a.m., I jolted awake to a sharp tapping on my window. My heart nearly stopped until I recognized Liam's silhouette, rain-drenched and gesturing urgently. I cracked the window slightly. "You need to move your van right now," he hissed. "The cliff edge is unstable in this weather. I've seen it collapse before." The panic in his voice seemed genuine, and when a flash of lightning illuminated the scene, I could swear the distance between my van and the cliff edge looked smaller than I remembered. I threw on clothes and slid into the driver's seat, starting the engine with shaking hands. Liam directed me to back up toward the trees, closer to where his Jeep was parked. As I maneuvered carefully in the darkness, another lightning flash revealed something that made my blood freeze. There was no Jeep where he'd parked earlier. Before I could process this, my rear tires hit something soft that wasn't ground. I stopped immediately and peered through the rain-streaked back windows, but could see nothing in the darkness. Liam had disappeared from beside my van. Calling his name into the howling wind yielded no response. With growing dread, I reached for my phone and flashlight, steeling myself to go outside and investigate. The rain had intensified to a blinding downpour, soaking me instantly as I stepped from the van. Pointing my flashlight toward where I felt the obstruction, I saw only mud and tire tracks at first. Then the beam caught a reflection of metal, not a Jeep, but an older model Subaru nearly hidden in the trees. Its doors were open, the interior rain-soaked as if it had been abandoned for hours. On the passenger seat lay a handbag, and scattered across the dashboard were photographs, dozens of them, all showing different young women with their vehicles at various scenic locations. Heart pounding, I swung my flashlight in a wide arc, searching for any sign of Liam or the vehicle's owner. The beam caught something white fluttering from a tree branch, a piece of fabric that looked horribly like the scarf I'd seen the barista wearing earlier. That's when I noticed the footprints in the mud, leading from the Subaru toward my van. Not one set, but two, larger prints that must have been Liam's, and smaller ones that stopped abruptly halfway. It was as if whoever made them had simply vanished or been carried. With sudden clarity, I remembered the barista's words about the missing girl and Liam's too quick interruption. This wasn't Whisper Cove. This had to be Devil's Kitchen. As I turned to run back to my van, my flashlight illuminated a small cairn of stones I hadn't noticed before. Around it were arranged personal items, a woman's watch, a driver's license, a hotel key card, like offerings at some macabre shrine. With horror, I realized I was standing in a killer's trophy collection. I sprinted for my van, mud sucking at my shoes, rain blinding me. Behind me came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, keeping pace easily despite my panic. I reached the van door and yanked it open, throwing myself inside and slamming it shut just as a hand slapped against the window. Liam's face pressed against the glass, no longer friendly but contorted with rage. "You weren't supposed to get out," he snarled, his voice barely audible over the storm. "You were supposed to sleep through it all." I locked the doors and scrambled into the driver's seat, fumbling for my keys with trembling hands. Liam circled the van like a predator, testing each door, his face appearing at different windows as lightning periodically illuminated the scene in frozen tableaus of terror. "You can't leave now, Natalie," he called, his voice taking on an almost sing-song quality that was more terrifying than his anger. "Not when you've seen my collection. Not when you're going to be part of it." The realization hit me with sickening force. He'd been collecting women like me, solo travelers whose disappearances would be attributed to accidents, whose bodies might never be found in the churning Pacific below the cliffs. The van's engine roared to life, but as I shifted into drive, I realized my situation was far worse than I'd imagined. In the darkness and rain, Liam had led me to park with my front end facing the cliff edge, not away from it as I'd thought. The trees and underbrush hemmed me in on three sides. The only clear path was forward, toward a drop I couldn't see but could hear in the thunderous crash of waves. Liam seemed to realize my dilemma and stepped directly in front of the van, arms outstretched as if daring me to run him down. "You have two choices," he shouted over the storm. "Come out and make this easy, or stay in there until the cliff gives way." The storm's eroding it by the minute. My phone still showed no signal, and I was at least 15 minutes from town on isolated roads I barely remembered. I hit the horn repeatedly, holding it down until the sound blared across the clifftop, though I knew there was likely no one close enough to hear. Liam just laughed, the sound chilling even through the closed windows. "No one comes to Devil's Kitchen during storms," he said, moving closer. "They know better. The locals think this place is cursed, that the cliffs call to people, whisper to them until they throw themselves off. Makes it so much easier for me." He pulled something from his pocket that caught the light, a hunting knife with a blade that looked well used. That's when I noticed movement behind him, a pale figure emerging from the trees, moving with an unnatural, shambling gait. Liam was so focused on me that he didn't sense the presence until it was nearly upon him. The figure, a woman in a torn, sodden dress, lunged forward just as another lightning flash revealed her face, or what remained of it after what must have been months in the ocean. Liam screamed, a sound of pure terror that cut through the storm as the figure wrapped elongated, seaweed-draped arms around him. I couldn't process what I was seeing. It defied reality, suggested madness. but I recognized the opportunity it presented. I wrenched the wheel hard to the right and floored the accelerator, the van's tires spinning in mud before finding purchase. There was just enough space between the trees to squeeze through if I didn't mind sacrificing paint and possibly a mirror. The van lurched forward, branches scraping horrifically against metal as I forced my way through the narrow gap. In my rearview mirror, I caught a final glimpse of Liam struggling with what couldn't possibly be real. Not one figure now, but several, pale forms rising from the undergrowth like ghastly mushrooms after rain, surrounding him as he slashed wildly with his knife. The gravel road was a ribbon of mud in my headlights, washouts threatening to trap me at every turn. I drove with reckless speed, the van hydroplaning on curves, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I had no idea if Liam might have a vehicle hidden somewhere, if he might come after me once he dealt with whatever hallucination, ghost, fellow victim I'd seen in those lightning flashes. Every set of headlights I passed on the main road made me flinch, certain it was him in pursuit. I didn't stop until I reached the abandoned police station, a small brick building on the edge of town where a sleepy-eyed officer jumped to alertness at the sight of my mud-covered, wild-eyed appearance. The hours that followed passed in a blur of statements and disbelief. "Devil's Kitchen is dangerous, miss," the senior officer told me with patronizing concern. "Those cliffs are unstable, especially in storms like this. No one goes out there, and there's certainly no evidence of foul play." When officers finally accompanied me back to the site after dawn, we found nothing. No Subaru, no photographs, no trophy collection. Even the tracks had been washed away by the continuing rain. The only evidence something had happened was the damage to my van and a tattered piece of fabric caught in my undercarriage that might or might not have been from the barista's scarf. They suggested I'd had some sort of episode brought on by isolation and the storm, or perhaps had encountered another traveler who spooked me with local ghost stories. The police reluctantly agreed to check on the cafe barista after I insisted, but reported back that Margot Lehman was fine, if confused by their questions. "She says she's never met you," the officer told me with thinly veiled skepticism. The cafe was closed yesterday for renovations. When I described Liam, they exchanged glances that made my skin crawl. "What?" I demanded. "That sounds like Connor Willis," the younger officer said hesitantly. "Local guy, but he's been dead for 2 years. Cliff collapsed at Devil's Kitchen during a storm, just like the ones we've been having. They never recovered the body." The senior officer shot him a warning look, but the damage was done. I felt the room tilt sideways as pieces clicked into horrible place. Liam's intimate knowledge of the area, his obsession with freedom, the way he'd led me so confidently through the darkness. "I know how this sounds," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "But someone tried to kill me last night, whether it was your dead local or someone pretending to be him." I described the Subaru again, the photographs, the personal items arranged around the cairn. The officers promised to investigate further, but their expressions told me they'd already filed me under hysterical tourist. They suggested I stay in town for another day or two in case they had more questions, but we all knew they were humoring me. Outside the station, the rain had finally stopped, and the town looked painfully normal in the gray morning light. Tourists buying saltwater taffy, fishermen unloading their morning catch, life proceeding as if my world hadn't just been shattered. Zoe arrived from Portland that afternoon, having finally received my increasingly frantic texts as soon as cell service was restored. She listened to my story without interruption, her expression shifting from concern to horror. "We need to find proof," she said when I finished, the investigative journalist in her taking over. "If what you saw was real, the Subaru, the collection, there must be evidence somewhere." We spent the afternoon researching Connor Willis, learning he'd been a local fishing guide with a spotless reputation, beloved by the community. His death had been ruled accidental, though his vehicle and body were never recovered, presumed washed out to sea after the cliff collapse. More disturbing were the other disappearances we uncovered. 3 solo female travelers in the past 2 years, all reported missing along different sections of the Oregon coast, all eventually written off as tragic accidents. One woman's van had been found parked dangerously close to a cliff edge during a storm, leading authorities to conclude she'd been swept away while taking photographs. The similarities to what had nearly happened to me were too striking to ignore. "He's been doing this for years," I whispered to Zoe as we huddled over her laptop in my motel room. using Willis's identity somehow, targeting women like me who won't be missed right away. Night had fallen by the time we formulated a plan. Risky, possibly stupid, but the only way we might find proof before I had to leave town. Zoe would drive my van back to Devil's Kitchen, park conspicuously in the same spot, and pretend to settle in for the night. I would follow separately in her car, keeping a safe distance, watching to see if our bait attracted Liam or whoever had impersonated him. We prepared carefully, both carrying bear spray and marine distress flares I'd had in my emergency kit. Zoe wore a body camera borrowed from a filmmaker friend, and we agreed on emergency signals and a strict time limit. If nothing happened within 2 hours, we'd leave and take our suspicions to the state police instead. The clearing looked different approaching from behind the wheel of Zoe's sedan, less isolated than I remembered, the cliff edge clearly visible even in darkness, the ground solid rather than crumbling. Had I imagined the danger in my panic? I parked hidden among trees about 50 yards back and settled in to watch as Zoe made a show of preparing the van for the night, lights on inside, her silhouette clearly visible through the windows. An hour passed with nothing more threatening than the occasional deer crossing the clearing. I was beginning to think I'd hallucinated the entire experience when headlights appeared on the access road. Not coming from town as expected, but from further along the coast where no road was supposed to exist. The vehicle that emerged from the hidden access point was a faded blue Jeep, exactly like the one Liam had been driving when I followed him here. It parked at the edge of the tree line, headlights extinguishing, but no one emerged. I texted Zoe, "Someone here. Blue Jeep. Stay locked in van." I watched her silhouette reach for her phone, saw her head turn slightly toward the Jeep's position. For 10 excruciating minutes, nothing happened. Then the Jeep's door opened, and a figure stepped out. Not Liam, but a woman, slender and graceful even at this distance. She stood beside her vehicle for a long moment, staring at my van, before retrieving something from inside the Jeep and walking slowly toward Zoe. I squinted through binoculars, trying to make out details in the darkness. The woman appeared to be in her 50s, her hair a silver helmet caught in the faint moonlight breaking through clouds. She carried what looked like flowers, an incongruously normal bouquet that she placed carefully on the ground before backing away from the van. Through the binoculars, I watched Zoe peer anxiously out the window at the unexpected offering. The woman made no threatening moves, just stood with her hands clasped, waiting. After a tense minute, Zoe cracked the van door, her voice carrying faintly to where I sat. "Can I help you?" The woman's reply was too soft to hear, but it prompted Zoe to step fully out of the van, though she kept the bear spray visible in her hand. Their conversation continued for several minutes, the woman pointing occasionally toward the cliff edge, Zoe nodding. I was about to abandon my hiding place and join them when the woman reached into her pocket and handed something to Zoe, something small that caught the light. Zoe examined it, then looked up sharply. The next moment, she was gesturing urgently in my direction. Taking this as my cue, I started the car and drove quickly to join them, heart hammering with uncertainty. "Natalie, this is Ellen Willis," Zoe said as I approached, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "Connor's mother." The woman's eyes, deeply lined but clear and intelligent, assessed me carefully. In her weathered hand, she held a photograph of a young man with a familiar smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You saw him," she stated, not a question but a certainty. "Here, at Devil's Kitchen, just like the others." Before I could respond, she pressed something cold and metal into my palm. A watch with a cracked face, stopped at 2:17. This was Connor's. Found it washed up 3 months after he died. Or didn't die, according to you. The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. "I never said." I began, but she cut me off with a sharp gesture. "5 women have come to me in the past 2 years, she said, her voice hardening. 5 women who met a man calling himself Liam, who claimed to be a travel writer, who brought them here and tried to hurt them. Police think they're confused, traumatized by near accidents, seeing things. I knew better. I knew it was Connor." She turned away, staring toward the cliff edge where her son had allegedly died. What I couldn't understand was why. He was a good boy. Everyone loved him. The pain in her voice was raw, real, yet something about her story wasn't adding up. Zoe, always quicker than me, had already made the connection. "You've been coming here at night," she said softly, "setting flowers where it happened." hoping to see him. Ellen nodded, tears tracking silently down her weathered cheeks. At first to mourn, then to understand, then to stop him. She looked directly at me. You're the first who's come back to prove what happened. The others just ran, reported it, were dismissed. She reached into her pocket again and pulled out a small notebook. I've kept track. Dates, descriptions, everything they told me about their encounters with my son who shouldn't be here. The realization was like ice water in my veins. It wasn't your son I met, I said, as gently as I could. Someone's been using his identity, his story. Someone who knows the area well enough to impersonate a local guide. Ellen's expression didn't change. Show her, she said to Zoe, who hesitantly handed me her phone. On the screen was a close-up of what the body camera had captured when Ellen handed over the photograph. The image of Connor Willis, the man I knew as Liam, standing on this very cliff. But reflected in the glossy surface of the photo was not Ellen's face as it should have been, but the face of the man himself, grinning with malicious triumph. He won't let me leave, Ellen said simply, as if this explained everything. I've tried so many times. Every road leads back here after dark. The town appears normal in daylight, but haven't you noticed? The same people, the same conversations, variations on a theme. My mind raced back through my interactions in Bandon, the oddly empty cafe, the barista who supposedly didn't remember me, the police officers who seemed to be following a script. What are you saying? I whispered, though part of me already knew. That none of this is real, that we're trapped in some, what ghost story? Hallucination? Ellen smiled sadly, glancing at her watch. Not Connor's broken one, but her own. It's nearly midnight, she said. That's when he comes. Not just for solitary women anymore. Now for anyone who knows. As if summoned by her words, fog began rolling in from the ocean, unnaturally fast, swallowing the cliff edge and surrounding trees. From within it came the sound of an engine, not the Jeep's, but the distinctive rumble of the Subaru I'd seen the night before. Headlights pierced the fog, illuminating a figure walking toward us with the confidence of someone who has all the time in the world. You brought friends this time, Natalie, called a familiar voice. How thoughtful of you to expand my collection. My name is Marcus Delgado. I'm 41 years old, and I live in Boston, Massachusetts. After 20 years working in financial software development, the burnout finally caught up with me in the form of panic attacks and insomnia that no amount of therapy or medication seemed to touch. My doctor called it occupational exhaustion syndrome, but I called it rock bottom. The decision to walk away from my six-figure salary wasn't as difficult as explaining it to my bewildered parents, who had sacrificed everything to put me through MIT. I'm taking a sabbatical, I told them, avoiding the truth that I had no intention of returning to the world of artificial deadlines and fluorescent lighting. 3 months later, I'd converted a Mercedes Sprinter into a mobile office and living space, equipped with Starlink internet and enough solar power to run my equipment when I was off-grid. The Pacific Northwest had always fascinated me. The dense forests, the moody coastline, the small towns that seemed frozen in a more authentic time. After spending the summer winding my way across the country, I arrived in Oregon just as autumn was painting the landscape in russet and gold. My plan was to spend a month exploring the state's wilderness areas before continuing south to avoid the notorious winter rains. I'd researched dispersed camping areas meticulously, marking national forest roads and BLM land where I could legally park my van for up to 14 days at a time. What I hadn't factored into my careful planning was an unseasonable snowstorm that would close mountain passes earlier than anyone expected. The snow started falling as I was driving through the Willamette National Forest, forcing me to abandon my intended route over the Cascades. A highway sign advertised the town of Stillwater, promising lodging and supplies just 12 miles off the main road. I hadn't encountered the name in my research, but the prospect of waiting out the storm somewhere with electricity and maybe decent coffee was appealing after a week of boondocking. The road to Stillwater narrowed as it wound through increasingly dense forest, the snow creating a tunnel-like effect in my headlights. By the time the town came into view, a small collection of buildings nestled in a valley surrounded by towering pines. Darkness had fallen completely, and the snow was accumulating at an alarming rate. Stillwater seemed eerily quiet for a place that supposedly catered to tourists, with only a handful of cars parked along the main street. The general store was just closing as I pulled up, but the elderly woman locking the door grudgingly reopened when I tapped on the glass. "You're just in time," she said, eyeing me with a curiosity that bordered on suspicion. "Roads will be impassable by morning if this keeps up." Her name was Martha, she explained as she sold me provisions, and she'd lived in Stillwater all her 78 years. When I asked about a place to park my van overnight, her expression clouded. Ordinarily, I'd suggest the RV park on Cedar Creek, but it's closed for renovations. Most folks just stay at the Pinewood Motel. The thought of abandoning my comfortable van for what was likely to be a musty motel room held little appeal. Martha must have read my hesitation because she leaned across the counter conspiratorially. "There's a turnout by the old lumber mill. Town council looks the other way if travelers park there during emergencies, and I'd call this weather an emergency." She drew me a simple map on the back of my receipt, her arthritic fingers tracing the route with surprising precision. "Just don't mention to anyone I sent you there. Some folks in town are particular about following ordinances to the letter." The way she emphasized some folks suggested a community divided, though over what, I couldn't guess. The lumber mill loomed at the edge of town like a rusting cathedral, its abandoned equipment creating strange silhouettes against the snow-heavy sky. The turnout Martha had indicated was empty and partially sheltered by a stand of massive Douglas firs that seemed to huddle protectively around the space. I maneuvered my van into position, the snow now several inches deep and still falling steadily. After a simple dinner heated on my propane stove, I settled into my customized workstation, using the unexpected stopover to catch up on some personal coding projects. The storm outside intensified, wind howling around the van's contours, but inside I was warm and content, the soft glow of my monitors creating a cocoon of normalcy. Around midnight, the scratching started, faint at first, easily dismissed as branches against metal or the natural contractions of the van's body in the cold. But it grew more insistent, more deliberate, moving systematically around the vehicle from window to window. I turned off my music and listened, tracking the sound as it circled back to my driver's side door, where it stopped. Then came the knock, 3 precise taps, not frantic or threatening, but calm and expectant, as if whoever was outside knew I was awake and was merely being polite. Through the frosted window, I could make out only a dark shape, too indistinct to identify as man or woman. Against every instinct of self-preservation, I cracked the window an inch. "Can I help you?" I called, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The answer came in a voice as dry and brittle as old paper. "You're parked on sacred ground, stranger. The Stillwater 7 don't take kindly to trespassers." I woke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the absolute darkness inside my van. The digital clock on my dashboard read 3:17 a.m., and the silence outside was absolute. No wind, no scratching, not even the ambient forest sounds that usually penetrated the van's insulation. I couldn't remember falling asleep after the strange encounter, couldn't recall what had happened after those ominous words were spoken. Had I dreamed it? The snow had stopped, moonlight now filtering through the windows to illuminate an interior that appeared undisturbed. With trembling fingers, I reached for my phone and found no signal, not unusual in remote areas, but discomforting under the circumstances. I switched on my emergency weather radio instead, seeking the reassuring voices of civilization, but received only static across all bands. Trying to shake off my unease, I pulled on an extra layer of clothing and my heavy boots, deciding that a quick reconnaissance of my surroundings might settle my nerves. The temperature had dropped dramatically, the door handle painfully cold even through my gloves. Outside, the world had been transformed, not just by snow, which lay in an unbroken blanket nearly a foot deep, but by a thick fog that limited visibility to just a few yards in any direction. The massive lumber mill that had dominated the landscape earlier was now just a looming shadow, its details lost in the mist. Most disturbing of all, there were no footprints around my van, no evidence of my midnight visitor, no sign that anyone had approached my vehicle at all. I had taken only a few steps from the van when I noticed something odd about the snow-covered ground. Perfectly circular areas where the snow seemed to have melted in geometrically precise patterns. 7 circles, each about 3 feet in diameter, arranged in what couldn't possibly be a natural formation. Within each circle, the ground wasn't bare as I'd initially thought, but covered in what appeared to be sawdust or wood shavings, their color almost identical to the surrounding snow in the dim light. I knelt to examine one, removing my glove to touch the material, and yanked my hand back immediately as pain shot through my fingertips. Not sawdust, but splinters, thousands of tiny, needle-sharp wooden splinters that seemed to writhe and reach for my exposed skin like hungry insects. Heart pounding, I retreated to my van, only to stop short at the sight that greeted me. The pristine snow I had just walked through now bore footprints, not just my own going outward, but a second set, smaller and barefoot despite the freezing temperature, leading directly to my open door. I sprinted the remaining distance, terrified of what I might find inside my sanctuary, but the van's interior was empty. Empty, except for a small wooden carving placed precisely in the center of my pillow, a crude human figure, its features roughly hewn but unmistakably contorted in an expression of agony. Carved into its base was a single word: leave. I was no stranger to encountering hostile locals in my travels. Rural communities often viewed outsiders with suspicion, but this was something else entirely, something that crawled under my skin and whispered of dangers I couldn't articulate. With shaking hands, I fired up the van's engine, fully intending to risk the snow-covered roads rather than spend another minute in this place. The engine turned over once, twice, then died with a sputtering cough. Again and again I tried, each attempt weaker than the last, until the starter produced nothing but a hollow click. The battery was dead, impossible, given the extensive solar system I'd installed, unless someone had deliberately sabotaged it. Dawn found me still huddled in my van, doors locked, the wooden figure now sealed in a plastic bag, as if that could somehow contain its malevolence. The fog had thickened rather than dissipated with the coming of day, the lumber mill and surrounding forest completely obscured. I had switched my phone to airplane mode overnight to conserve battery, and when I turned it back on, I was surprised to find I suddenly had a signal, weak but present. With a flood of relief, I dialed 911, only to be greeted by the same brittle voice from the night before. The Stillwater 7 don't take kindly to trespassers. The call disconnected immediately. When I tried again, the phone displayed the text "No service" despite showing 2 bars of connectivity. As a last resort, I decided to walk back to the general store and seek help from Martha, who had seemed friendly enough despite her odd behavior. Pocketing my keys and phone, I wrapped myself in my warmest jacket and stepped out into what should have been morning but remained a twilight world of fog and diffuse, directionless light. The road I had driven in on was barely visible as a slight depression in the snow, and I followed it with the caution of someone navigating a minefield, remembering those circles of splinters. I had gone perhaps 50 yards when I came upon the first tree, or what had once been a tree. Now it was a grotesquely carved approximation of a human form, 20 feet tall, its wooden limbs twisted in positions that suggested unimaginable torture, its face frozen in a silent scream that I felt rather than heard. I stumbled backward, nearly falling in my haste to put distance between myself and the carved monstrosity. As my eyes adjusted to the fog, I realized with mounting horror that the tree wasn't alone. 6 more towered around me in a loose circle, each carved into a different posture of agony, their wooden faces bearing expressions so human that I could almost name the emotions they portrayed: rage, despair, betrayal, terror. These had to be the Stillwater 7 my midnight visitor had mentioned, though whether they represented victims or perpetrators of some ancient atrocity, I couldn't begin to guess. The fog seemed to cling to them, writhing around their wooden limbs like sentient mist, and I swore I could hear whispers emanating from their frozen mouths, indistinct but undeniably malevolent. Fighting the urge to run blindly into the forest, I forced myself to think analytically, to approach the situation with the same methodical problem-solving that had served me well in my former career. The road had to lead back to town. I simply needed to follow it and find help, mechanical or human. I kept a careful distance from the carved trees, watching them from the corner of my eye as I skirted their perimeter. For a moment, I could have sworn one moved slightly, its wooden head turning fractionally to follow my progress, but when I looked directly at it, it was as motionless as before. Still, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched, evaluated, judged by something ancient and patient. The road led me not to the town I expected, but to the lumber mill itself, its rusted gates standing open like the maw of some industrial leviathan. The building loomed far larger than it had appeared from a distance, its weathered walls stretching into the fog in both directions. A faded sign hanging askew over the entrance read Stillwater Timber and Milling Company, St. 1897, and beneath it, barely legible through decades of exposure, home of the Fighting Seven. The coincidence, if it was a coincidence, sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the freezing temperature. What had Martha said? The town council looked the other way if travelers parked by the old mill during emergencies. Had she deliberately sent me here, knowing what waited in the fog? Common sense told me to turn back, to try another direction, but a combination of stubborn curiosity and the growing certainty that I was being herded by unseen forces propelled me forward. The mill's interior was a cathedral of decay, vast spaces filled with hulking machinery half buried in sawdust, catwalks hanging precariously overhead, broken windows allowing fingers of fog to probe the darkness. My footsteps echoed hollowly on the concrete floor, stirring eddies in the layers of dust and debris. The air smelled of rust and rot and something else, a sweet, resinous scent that reminded me of freshly cut wood, but with an underlying note that turned my stomach. Deeper in the mill, I found the office areas, small, wood-paneled rooms with antique desks and filing cabinets that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. Calendars on the walls were frozen in time, April 1987. In what must have been the foreman's office, a large framed photograph hung slightly askew on the wall, a group portrait of 7 men standing proudly in front of the then-new mill, their faces stern beneath flat caps and bushy mustaches fashionable in the late 19th century. Below the photo, a brass plaque identified them as the Stillwater Seven, founders and visionaries. I leaned closer, studying their faces, and felt my blood freeze. Despite the image's age and formal composition, I recognized those faces, not as individuals I'd met, but as the exact expressions carved into the trees outside. The sound of footsteps on metal drew my attention to a staircase I hadn't noticed before, narrow, spiral steps leading both up to a catwalk and down into darkness. The footsteps were coming from below, slow and deliberate, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of wood scraping against wood. Flight instinct finally overriding curiosity, I turned to retrace my steps out of the office, and found Martha blocking the doorway, her frail figure somehow filling the space completely. "You shouldn't have come inside," she said, her voice no longer that of the elderly shopkeeper, but the same brittle tones that had spoken outside my van. "Now you've woken them fully. Now you must learn their story. Now you must take your place." She moved toward me with a fluidity that belied her apparent age, herding me toward the spiral staircase as the footsteps from below grew louder, more numerous. "In 1897, 7 men founded Stillwater Mills," she recited, her voice taking on the cadence of a tour guide. "They grew wealthy by clear-cutting ancient forests that the native peoples considered sacred. When warned to stop, they laughed. When threatened with curses, they hired armed guards. And when 7 tribal elders came to perform a ritual of protection on the last stand of old growth, the founders had them bound to 7 trees and fed into the mill's saws, feet first, while still alive." The matter-of-fact way she described the atrocity was almost more chilling than the deed itself. Their screams are said to have been heard 10 miles away in the next town. Martha continued her grotesque history lesson as she backed me toward the stairs. The curse took effect immediately. Within a year, all 7 founders died in separate accidents at the mill, each found impaled on equipment, their bodies contorted in positions of immense suffering, exactly mirroring how they had positioned their victims. Her eyes had grown distant, focused on some internal vision of the past. But death didn't end their torment. Every 7 years, when the fog rolls in early and thick, the founders return, seeking 7 travelers to take their place and grant them a reprieve from their eternal punishment. For one night, they can walk as men again while the chosen travelers suffer in their stead, bound in wooden prisons of agony. The implications hit me with the force of physical blow. The wooden figures outside weren't representations of the founders or their victims. They were vessels, prisons for modern souls. And I had been lured here as a potential replacement, another link in a chain of suffering that had continued for over a century. As if summoned by this realization, figures began to emerge from the stairwell. 6 men in antiquated clothing, their movements jerky and unnatural, their skin possessing the sheen and grain of polished hardwood. Up close, they were even more horrifying. Not quite human, not quite statues, but some unholy fusion that violated the natural order of both. Their eyes were the worst part, liquid and alive, filled with a desperate hunger that had nothing to do with food. Only 6, I managed to ask, my voice barely audible over the thundering of my heart. Martha's smile was terrible in its warmth. You're the 7th, Mr. Delgado, where you will be by sunrise. The wooden men spread out, forming a semicircle that cut off any route of escape except the staircase behind me, which I now noticed led not to a lower level, but to a platform suspended over the mill's main floor, where massive circular saw blades still gleamed with malevolent purpose despite decades of disuse. Below them, 7 tree trunks had been positioned upright, each partly carved into a rough approximation of a human form, lacking only the finishing details and the occupant. My analytical mind, the part that had solved complex coding problems and architectural challenges throughout my career, whirred into desperate activity. There had to be a pattern, a loophole, some way to break a curse that operated on such precise cycles and specific rules. How do you choose? I asked, playing for time, studying my surroundings for anything that might serve as a weapon or escape route. Why me? Why here? Martha's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of what might have been compassion crossing her features before the cold mask returned. The land chooses. The trees whisper the names of those whose souls will burn brightest in atonement. You were called here, Mr. Delgado, just as I was, many cycles ago. That revelation stopped me cold. You're not from Stillwater? Martha laughed, a sound like autumn leaves crushing underfoot. I was passing through in 1964, on my way to San Francisco in a very different life. My husband and I. Her voice caught, and for a moment, real emotion broke through. The founders took him that cycle. I tried to run, to get help. The fog always brought me back to this mill. Eventually, I understood there was no escape, only accommodation. She gestured around at the dust-covered office. I maintain their story. I guide the chosen ones to them. And in return, I'm allowed to live a half-life in this town that exists only during the 7-day window every 7 years, when the veil between their world and ours is thinnest. The wooden men had grown restless during our conversation, their joints creaking audibly as they shifted position, drawing incrementally closer. One of them, distinguished by a carved walrus mustache and the bearing of authority, stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was the rustle of sawdust falling through still air. Enough words. The night wanes. We must wear flesh again before dawn. His wooden hand shot out with impossible speed, fingers elongating in flight to wrap around my wrist like living roots, burning cold against my skin. I reacted instinctively, yanking free with enough force that something cracked, not in my arm, but in his wooden fingers. That sound triggered chaos. The wooden men surged forward as one, no longer moving with jerky hesitation, but flowing like predators released from restraint. I threw myself sideways, rolling beneath an antique desk as grasping wooden limbs splintered the floorboards where I had stood. Martha was shouting something, not to me, but to them. Careful. The body must be intact for the binding. Her betrayal stung despite its inevitability, fueling a desperate strength as I kicked over a filing cabinet to block their advance and scrambled toward the door. I almost made it before wooden fingers closed around my ankle, sending me sprawling face first onto the dusty floor. The grip on my ankle was relentless, wood fusing to wood as the founder's hand elongated and flowed over my boot like living sap. I twisted violently, my free foot connecting with what would have been a knee on a human being, shattering the wooden joint with a satisfying crack. The founder howled, a sound like wind through dead branches, but his grip only tightened, dragging me backward toward his companions. In desperation, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my last resort, the emergency flare I always carried on remote trips. With fumbling fingers, I struck it against the floor, the the sudden burst of chemical fire momentarily blinding in the dim office. The effect on the wooden men was instantaneous and catastrophic. They recoiled as one, high keening sounds emanating from their carved mouths as they scrambled to put distance between themselves and the dancing flame. The one gripping my ankle didn't release me quickly enough. The flare touched his extended arm, and fire raced along the wood with supernatural hunger, consuming his substance as he thrashed in silent agony. The scent that filled the air was not the expected smell of burning wood, but something ancient and corrupt, like excavated bog bodies and forgotten sacrifices. Martha moved with surprising speed for her apparent age, positioning herself between me and the exit. "You don't understand what you've done," she hissed, her face contorted with genuine fear. "If one is destroyed before the transference is complete, the cycle is broken. They'll all be trapped between states, neither wood nor flesh, unable to continue or end their punishment." As if confirming her words, the remaining founders began to convulse, their wooden bodies rippling and shifting between solid matter and something more spectral. The flames consuming their companion had spread to the sawdust-covered floor, ancient timbers catching with supernatural speed as decades of accumulated dust and resin provided ready fuel. "You must complete the ritual," Martha screamed over the growing roar of the fire, reaching for me with clawed hands. "One must take his place, or we're all damned to something worse." I shoved past her with the strength of terror, her frail body offering minimal resistance. As I raced through the labyrinthine mill, flames pursued me with unnatural intelligence, cutting off one exit after another, hurting me deeper into the building's heart. The heat was becoming unbearable, the smoke thick enough to choke, but still I heard them behind me. Not just footsteps, but the groan and creak of the mill itself, as if the entire structure had awakened to join the hunt. I found myself on the main floor, surrounded by monstrous machinery half consumed by flames. The 7 tree trunks stood like silent sentinels amidst the inferno, untouched by the fire raging all around them. Beyond them loomed a massive door, the loading bay where timber had once been brought in and processed lumber sent out. My last hope of escape. I sprinted toward it, lungs burning, eyes streaming from the smoke. Behind me, the cacophony of destruction rose to a crescendo as support beams gave way and sections of the roof began to collapse. Just as my hand touched the rusted handle of the bay door, a voice cut through the chaos. Not Martha's or the wooden men's, but something older and deeper, speaking directly into my mind. "Release us," it said. The words formed from the crackling of flames and the crash of falling timber. "End the cycle. Burn it all." The voice carried neither malice nor benevolence, only a profound weariness that resonated with my own exhausted soul. In that moment of clarity, I understood. This wasn't just about 7 men suffering for their crimes or 7 innocents taken as substitutes. It was about a pattern locked in endless repetition, a wound in reality that could never heal while the mill stood and the ritual continued. My hand moved away from the door handle to the emergency axe mounted beside it. With methodical precision, I smashed open the ancient fuse box nearby, exposing wires that sparked eagerly in the smoke-filled air. The explosion that followed as fire met electricity was more cathartic than frightening, a cleansing wave of destruction that swept through the mill with final authority. I barely made it through the bay doors before the main support columns failed, the entire structure imploding in a cataclysm of flame and twisted metal. From what I hoped was a safe distance, I watched the conflagration consume over a century of atrocity and recompense. The 7 tree trunks were the last things to burn, each igniting not from the surrounding fire, but from within, as if something long trapped was finally breaking free in a purifying blaze. In the shifting smoke, I thought I saw 14 figures rising, 7 in antiquated clothing, 7 in traditional native dress, ascending together into a sky that was rapidly clearing of both fog and darkness. I spent that night in my van, which I found exactly where I'd left it, the battery mysteriously functional again. In the morning light, there was no sign of Stillwater. Not the mill, not the general store, not a single building or road. Only forest stretched in every direction, undisturbed except for a massive clearing of fresh ash where the mill had stood. My GPS placed me in an uninhabited section of the Willamette National Forest, miles from any marked road or settlement. According to my electronic maps, no town called Stillwater had ever existed in Oregon. When I searched news archives later, I found only a single reference, a small paragraph in an 1897 newspaper reporting that 7 loggers had died in a mill accident, their bodies burned beyond recognition in the subsequent fire. I've returned to Boston now, my cross-country adventure cut short by an experience I still struggle to classify as supernatural event or elaborate hallucination. My therapist favors the latter explanation, suggesting that my burnout manifested as a stress-induced psychotic episode triggered by isolation and the unexpected snowstorm. It's a comforting theory that I almost managed to believe during daylight hours. But in the dark before dawn, when I jolt awake from dreams of wooden faces and circular saws, I smell fresh sawdust in my bedroom and find tiny splinters embedded in my fingertips, splinters that, under a microscope, reveal growth rings dating back more than a century. Rain pelts the roof of my van, a steady drumbeat that's oddly comforting as I pull into Astoria. I'm Everett Langston, 29 years old, and I call Eugene home when I'm not chasing freedom on the road. My van, a beat-up Ford Econoline I named Betsy, is my sanctuary. Think cozy bed, string lights, and a tiny stove for late-night ramen. Astoria's got this eerie charm, all fog and old Victorian houses, like something out of a horror movie. I heard about a quiet spot by the Columbia River, perfect for stealth camping. It's late, maybe 11 p.m., and the streets are empty. I'm exhausted from driving, my eyes burning, so I park near some abandoned warehouses. Bad idea, maybe, but I'm too tired to care. I lock the doors, crawl into bed, and let the rain lull me to sleep, clueless about the nightmare waiting. The river's close, and I can smell the salty air through the cracked window. Astoria's got history, ghost stories, shipwrecks, and weird local tales about shadow folk who haunt the docks. I don't buy into that stuff, but it's fun to think about while I sip my instant coffee. I met a guy at a gas station earlier, Silas, maybe 40, with a scruffy beard and a creepy stare. He warned me not to park near the water, said it's bad ground. I laughed it off, small town superstition, right? Now, lying here, I'm starting to wonder if I should have listened. The fog's so thick I can't see 10 feet past the van. It's quiet, too quiet, and I feel this weird itch, like someone's watching me. I shake it off and scroll through my phone, looking at photos from my last stop in Bend. That's when I hear it, a low hum, not mechanical, more like chanting. It's faint, coming from the river. I freeze, my heart doing a little flip. Probably just the wind, I tell myself, but it's disturbing, like something's crawling under my skin. I turn off my phone's light and peek through the curtain. Nothing but fog and the faint outline of those creepy warehouses. I'm alone, right? I mean, who'd be out here at this hour? I try to relax, but that hum keeps going, steady and unnatural. It's not loud, but it's there, like a pulse in the night. I think back to a horror flick I watched last week. The fog, same vibes, ghostly sailors in a misty town. Astoria's got that exact energy tonight. I laugh nervously, trying to lighten my mood, but it's not working. I grab my flashlight and check the locks again, just to be safe. My van's my fortress, but it feels flimsy right now, like a tin can against whatever's out there. I tell myself I'm being paranoid. I've parked in sketchy spots before, deserts, forests, even that one time near Reno when a coyote scared the crap out of me. This is nothing, I say, but my gut's screaming otherwise. Silas's warning sticks in my head. He didn't seem like the friendly type, more like he was sizing me up. I wonder if he's part of some weird local cult. Astoria's got that kind of reputation, doesn't it? I'm half joking, but the thought makes my skin crawl. I pull my blanket tighter, trying to focus on the rain, but that humming won't stop. It's closer now, I swear, like it's circling the van. I'm not a superstitious guy, but this place feels wrong, scary in a way I can't explain. I decide to stay put till morning. No way I'm driving through this fog. I dig out my journal to distract myself, scribbling about the day. I write about Silas, the fog, the humming. It helps, kinda, but my hand's shaking. I'm not a coward, but something about this spot is off. It's like the air's heavy, pressing down on me. I think about my friend Mara back in Eugene. She'd say I'm nuts for parking here. She's always telling me to stick to campgrounds. But where's the adventure in that? Now, I'm questioning my choices. The humming shifts, almost like words, but I can't make them out. It's freaking me out, but I'm too stubborn to move. I lie back, staring at the ceiling, willing myself to sleep. The rain's still going, but it's not comforting anymore. It's like a curtain hiding something sinister. I tell myself I'll leave at dawn, find a coffee shop, and laugh this off. But deep down, I know something's wrong. This isn't just a creepy night in a creepy town. It's something else, something disturbing that's already sinking its claws into me. I close my eyes, but the humming follows me into my dreams, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm not alone out here. I wake up to silence. No rain, no humming, just an eerie stillness that's somehow worse. My phone says it's 3 a.m., and the fog's still choking the view outside my van. I'm Everett Langston, still parked by the Columbia River in Astoria, and I'm regretting every life choice that led me here. Betsy's battery is acting up. Dashboard lights flickered when I tried starting her earlier. Great timing, right? I'm stranded until I figure it out, and the idea of popping the hood in this creepy fog makes my stomach twist. I grab my flashlight, but the beam barely cuts through the mist. Something feels off, like the air's holding its breath. I'm trying to stay calm, but this place is giving me horror movie vibes, and not the fun kind. I dig through my toolbox, cursing under my breath. I'm no mechanic, but I've fixed Betsy before, like that time in Klamath Falls when the alternator crapped out. I find a loose battery cable and tighten it, hoping that's the fix. My hands are shaking, not just from the cold. That humming from last night's gone, but now I'm hearing something else. A faint rustle, like footsteps on gravel. I freeze, listening hard. It stops, then starts again, closer. My heart's pounding, and I'm telling myself it's just a raccoon or something. But deep down, I know it's not. This is Astoria, land of ghost stories and weirdos like Silas, who's probably laughing somewhere right now. I climb back into the van and lock the doors, feeling like a kid hiding from the boogeyman. I'm debating whether to stay put or try driving through the fog. Leaving feels risky. Betsy's not reliable, and I can't see 10 feet ahead. But staying? That's starting to feel like a death wish. I think about Silas's warning again, bad ground. What did he mean? Was he just messing with me? Or does he know something? I'm starting to think he's not just some random creep. Maybe he's tied to whatever's out there. The rustling stops, but now there's a new sound, scratching, faint but deliberate, on the van's side. It's disturbing, like nails on a chalkboard. I grab my pocket knife, feeling ridiculous but desperate. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. I'm trying to remember every horror story I've heard about Astoria. There's that local myth about the shadow folk, spirits of drowned sailors who lure people to the river. My buddy in Eugene, Theo, told me about it once. He's big into paranormal stuff. Said they trick you into following them, and you're never seen again. I laughed it off then, but now? It's not so funny. The scratching gets louder, and I'm picturing Silas out there, or something worse. I'm not religious, but I'm whispering a prayer under my breath. I decide to check my phone for a signal. Maybe I can call for help. No bars, of course. Classic. I'm cut off, alone, and freaking out. I think about my sister, Lila, back in Eugene. She'd kill me if she knew I was parked in a place like this. I promised her I'd be careful, but here I am, playing chicken with whatever's outside. The scratching stops, and for a second, I think it's over. Then I see it, a shape in the fog, tall and thin, moving slow. It's not clear, but it's there, and it's watching me. My blood runs cold. This isn't a raccoon or a prank. Something's seriously wrong, and I'm in deep. I'm torn between starting the van and hoping it works, or staying quiet and hoping whatever's out there leaves. I'm leaning toward driving, but the fog's so thick I might crash into the river. My mind's racing, replaying every scary moment I've ever had. Like that time I got lost hiking near Crater Lake and thought I'd die. This is worse, though. Way worse. I notice my journal's open to last night's entry, where I wrote about the humming. I scribble a quick note. Something's outside. Not human. It feels stupid, but if I don't make it, maybe someone will find it. The shape in the fog moves closer, and I'm gripping my knife so tight my knuckles hurt. I'm sweating now despite the cold. The van feels like a trap, but it's all I've got. I try the ignition, praying Betsy doesn't betray me. The engine sputters, then catches, and I let out a shaky laugh. But the relief's short-lived. That shape's still out there, and now I swear I hear whispering. Not words, just a low, creepy murmur. It's like the fog itself is talking, and it's terrifying. I'm not sure what's worse, staying here or driving blind into whatever's waiting. I flick on the headlights, hoping to scare it off, but the beams just bounce off the fog. The whispering gets louder, and I'm starting to think I've made a huge mistake parking here. The headlights do nothing but make the fog glow, and that whispering's now a full-on chant, low and guttural, like it's coming from everywhere. I'm Everett Langston, stuck in my van by the Columbia River in Astoria, and I'm way past scared. This is straight-up horror. The shape in the fog is closer, and now there's more than one. 3, maybe 4, tall and thin, moving like they're gliding. My heart's hammering so hard I can barely think. I lock the doors again, even though I know it's pointless. These aren't people, not anymore. The chanting's louder, and I catch a word, my name. They're saying Everett in this creepy, drawn-out way. How do they know me? I'm losing it, gripping my knife like it'll save me. I try to breathe, but the air feels thick, like I'm drowning on land. The shapes stop moving, just standing there, maybe 20 feet away. I can't see faces, but I feel their eyes, and it's disturbing as hell. I'm thinking about that myth again, the shadow folk, spirits who drag you to the river. But this feels too real, too deliberate. I remember Silas's creepy stare at the gas station, how he knew I was camping here. Was he setting me up? My mind's spinning, connecting dots that don't make sense. The chanting shifts, and now it's mixed with laughter, cold, sharp, human laughter. Someone's out there with these things, and I'm betting it's him. I fumble for my phone, still no signal, but I hit record, whispering. If anyone finds this, I'm by the river in Astoria. Something's after me. It's dramatic, but I'm not taking chances. The shapes start moving again, circling the van, and the chanting's so loud it's vibrating in my chest. I peek through the curtain and see one of them up close. Gray skin, hollow eyes, and a mouth that's too wide. It's not human, but it's wearing clothes, tattered and old, like from a shipwreck. My stomach lurches. This is the kind of scary you don't come back from, like those stories of people vanishing near the docks. The laughter stops, and I hear a knock on the van's door, slow, deliberate, like they're toying with me. I nearly scream, but bite my lip so hard it bleeds. I'm thinking about my friend Theo, how he'd be geeking out over this paranormal crap, but I'm just trying not to piss myself. The knock comes again, and a voice, Silas's voice, says, "Everett, come out. They just want to talk." It's calm, too calm, and it's terrifying. He's part of this, I know it now. I'm not opening that door, no way. But the van's starting to feel like a coffin, and I'm running out of options. I crawl to the driver's seat, keeping low, and check the ignition. Betsy's still running, thank God, but the fog's so thick I can't see the road. The shapes are pressing closer. I can hear their hands brushing the van, a sickening scrape. I'm remembering a true crime podcast about a cult in Oregon, how they lured people to remote spots for rituals. Is that what's happening? Silas and these things? The chanting's now a scream, and the van shakes, like they're trying to tip it. I'm not imagining this. It's real, and it's worse than any horror movie I've ever seen. I grab my flashlight and shine it out the window, desperate for a better look. Big mistake. The light catches one of the things, and its face twists, like it's smiling but in pain. It's got no pupils, just black voids, and it's staring right at me. I drop the flashlight, cursing myself for being so stupid. Silas's voice comes again, closer, right outside the door. "You can't hide, Everett. They've chosen you." Chosen? For what? My mind's screaming to drive, but I'm frozen, paralyzed by the sheer terror of what's out there. The van shakes again, harder, and I hear wood splintering somewhere. I'm hyperventilating now, trying to think of anything that'll get me out of this. I remember a trick from a survival show: make noise, scare off predators. I slam my hand on the horn, and the sound cuts through the fog like a knife. The chanting stops for a second, and the shapes back off, but Silas laughs, loud and unhinged. "Oh, you're gonna regret that," he says, and the van lurches, like something massive just hit it. I'm out of time, out of ideas, and the reality's sinking in. Something's very, very wrong, and I'm not just fighting for my van or my stuff. I'm fighting for my life. The van's still shaking, and I'm done waiting to die. I slam Betsy into gear, praying she doesn't stall. Ascended to the top of the food chain in Astoria. My heart's racing as the tires screech, kicking up gravel. The fog's a wall, but I don't care. I'm flooring it, barely seeing the road. Those things, shadow folk or whatever, are chasing me, their screams mixing with Silas's manic laughter. I glance in the side mirror and see them gliding after me. Too fast, too close. It's pure horror, like I'm in a nightmare I can't wake up from. I swerve, nearly hitting a tree, and my knife slides off the seat, useless now. I'm thinking of my sister Lila, how I promised I'd come home. I can't die here, not like this, but the river's edge is close, and one wrong move means I'm done. Betsy's engine's screaming, and I'm weaving through the fog, the road a blurry mess. The shapes are gaining, their claw-like hands scraping the van's sides. It's terrifying, like they're toying with me. I remember a dirt road I passed earlier, narrow, hidden by trees. Maybe I can lose them there. I yank the wheel, skidding onto it, branches smacking the windshield. The chanting's back, louder, and I hear Silas yell, "You can't run, Everett." My phone's still recording, capturing this insanity. I'm thinking of that time I outran a storm in Nevada, but this is different. This is a life or death chase, and I'm not sure I'll make it. The dirt road's bumpy, and Betsy's rattling like she's about to fall apart. I spot a fork ahead and take the left path, hoping it leads somewhere safe. Bad call. The road narrows, and I'm boxed in by trees. The shapes are relentless, and I swear one's on the roof, its weight making the van groan. I'm screaming now, pure panic, like when I was a kid lost in the woods. I slam the brakes, hoping to throw it off, and hear a thud. It works, but the others are still coming. I'm trapped, the fog thicker here, and Silas's voice is everywhere, like he's in my head. It's disturbing how he's enjoying this. I grab my flashlight, ready to fight, but it's a joke against these things. I need a miracle, and I'm fresh out. I spot a gap in the trees, maybe a clearing. I gun it, Betsy lurching forward, and burst into an open field. The fog's thinner here, but the shapes are right behind me. I see a rusted gate ahead, leading to a road. If I can reach it, maybe I'll hit civilization. But the van's overheating, steam hissing from the hood. I'm thinking of my friend Theo, how he'd say this is some ancient curse. Screw that, I just want to live. The gate's close, but a shape lunges, smashing the side window. Glass cuts my arm, blood dripping, and the pain's sharp, but I keep driving. It's do or die, and I'm not ready to go out in this scary-ass town. I crash through the gate, metal screeching, and hit a paved road. The shapes hesitate, like they're bound to the field. I don't stop to check, just keep driving, blood soaking my sleeve. Silas's laughter fades, but I'm not safe yet. The fog's lifting, and I see lights, Astoria's outskirts. My heart's still pounding, and I'm shaking so bad I can barely steer. I think of my mom, how she'd hug me after nightmares. No hugs now, just survival. I pull into a gas station, panting, and check the mirrors. Nothing's there, but I feel watched. It's horror at its worst, and I'm not sure I've escaped. Betsy's engine dies, and I'm stranded again, but alive, for now. I stumble out, locking the van, and limp inside the station. The clerk, a kid named Jaden, sees my arm and freaks, calling 911. I'm babbling about shadow folk and Silas, but he thinks I'm high. I don't blame him. This sounds insane. My phone's still recording, proof I'm not crazy, but it's low on battery. I'm thinking of that cult podcast again, how they'd mark their victims. Was I marked? The thought's chilling, like I've stepped into a scary story I can't unread. Sirens wail in the distance, and I'm relieved, but deep down, I know this isn't over. Those things wanted me for something, and Silas is still out there. I wrap my arm in a rag Jaden gives me, trying to calm down. The station's fluorescent lights feel too bright, like they're exposing me. I'm replaying every mistake, parking by the river, ignoring Silas's warning, shining that flashlight. Each one's a nail in my coffin, and I'm not sure I've dodged the hammer. The shapes didn't follow, but I feel their eyes, like they're waiting. It's terrifying, how they knew my name, how Silas played me. I'm thinking of moving back to Eugene, ditching Vanlife for good. But something tells me they'll find me, no matter where I go. The cops pull up, and I'm hoping they'll believe me, but I'm not holding my breath. The cops are skeptical, scribbling notes as I spill my story. I'm Everett Langston, 29, and I'm begging them to check the river, find Silas, anything. They think I'm traumatized, maybe drunk, but my arm's bleeding proof something happened. They tow Betsy to a shop, and I'm stuck at the station with Jaden, who's texting his girlfriend about the crazy dude. I'm checking my phone, Recording's still there, but it's garbled, like the audio's corrupted. The chanting's gone, just static and my panicked voice. It's disturbing, like those things erased themselves. I'm thinking of my journal, left in the van. Maybe it's got answers, but I'm too shaken to go back. I made it out, but at what cost? A detective, Marla, sits me down, her eyes kind but sharp. She's heard stories like mine. Disappearances near the river, chalked up to drunks or tides. No mention of shadow folk, but she knows Silas, says he's a local drifter, harmless. Harmless? I almost laugh. I tell her about the chanting, the shapes, how they chased me. She nods, but I see the doubt. My mistake was thinking I could outrun this. I should have left Astoria at the first sign, but I stayed, cocky and stubborn. Now I'm marked, and it's horror I can't shake. Marla says they'll patrol the docks, but I know they won't find anything. Those things aren't human, and Silas is their puppet. I crash at a motel, too paranoid to sleep. The clerk, an old guy named Hank, mentions rumors, cults, sacrifices tied to Astoria's old canneries. He's half joking, but it hits too close. I'm thinking of my friend Mara, how she'd say I'm cursed now. I check my phone again, and the recording's gone, like it never existed. My blood runs cold. It's not just scary, it's proof they're still with me. I made a deadly mistake trusting technology, thinking it'd save me. I shower, but the water doesn't wash away the dread. My arm's stitched up, but I feel hollow, like something's inside me, waiting. I'm not safe. Not here, not anywhere. I call Lila, my sister, at dawn. She's pissed but relieved, says she's driving up from Eugene. I don't tell her everything. How do you explain this? I'm staring out the motel window, fog rolling in again. That's when I see him, Silas, across the street, smiling. My heart stops. He's holding my journal, waving it like a trophy. I blink, and he's gone, but the message is clear, they're not done. I made another mistake, thinking I escaped. This isn't over, it's a tragedy I'm living. I grab my bag, ready to run again, but my reflection in the mirror stops me. My eyes, they're wrong, too dark, like theirs. I'm freaking out, tearing through my stuff for anything to fight back. Salt, iron, holy water, stupid, but I'm desperate. I remember a ghost story from Theo, how spirits latch onto you if you engage. I engaged, big time, with that flashlight, the horn, everything. My biggest mistake was thinking I could win. I hear the chanting again, faint, in my head. It's not outside, it's me. I'm part of their game now, and it's gruesome. Lila's hours away, and I'm not sure I'll last. I scribble a note. Don't trust Silas. Don't stay in Astoria. I'm hoping she'll find it, but I know the truth. I'm already gone, just don't know it yet. I head to the bus station, thinking I'll get to Portland, disappear. The fog's thick again, and every shadow feels alive. I'm shaking, clutching my note like it's a lifeline. That's when I feel it, a cold grip on my shoulder, invisible but real. The chanting's louder, and my vision blurs. I stumble, dropping the note, and see Silas in the crowd, his smile wider and human. The twist hits me like a gut punch. I'm not escaping. I'm becoming one of them. My mistake was thinking I was the prey they wanted to recruit. My legs give out, and the fog swallows me. I'm screaming, but no one hears. It's a tragedy, and I'm the punchline. The last thing I see is my reflection in a puddle, my face, but not mine. Hollow eyes, gray skin, a shadow folk staring back. I'm gone, transformed, part of their crew. Lila will come, find my note, but it's too late. I'm trapped, forever bound to the river, luring others like Silas lured me. It's horror beyond death, a cruel fate I didn't see coming. My van life dreams a nightmare, and Astoria is my tomb. I try to fight, to scream, but my voice is theirs now, chanting in the fog. The tragedy's complete. I'm not Everett anymore. I'm something else, something scary, and there's no way out. Rain's hammering my van as I roll into Coos Bay, the kind of downpour that makes you feel like the world's ending. I'm Juniper Callahan, 32 years old, and I live in Bend when I'm not chasing the open road. My van, a Dodge Sprinter I call Mabel, is my home. Think fairy lights, a mini fridge, and a mattress I've hauled across half the West Coast. Coos Bay's got this gritty, salty vibe, all fishing boats and foggy docks, like it's hiding secrets. I'm beat from driving, so I find a secluded spot near Bastendorf Beach, tucked behind some dunes. It's probably not legal to park here, but it's late, and I'm banking on no one noticing. I lock Mabel's doors, sip some chamomile tea, and try to ignore the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. The ocean's roaring nearby, waves crashing like they're angry. Coos Bay's got a reputation for ghost stories, something about a weeping woman who haunts the shore, tied to a shipwreck from the 1800s. I heard it from a barista in Bandon, who said she lures people into the surf. I'm not big on myths, but the story stuck with me. Earlier, I stopped at a diner and met a waitress, Darlene, maybe 50, with a smoker's rasp and a weird intensity. She saw my van and told me to avoid the beach at night, said folks go missing. I brushed it off, small town gossip, right? But now, parked here, I'm second-guessing myself. The fog's rolling in, thick and heavy, like it's swallowing Mabel whole. I pull out my sketchbook to calm my nerves, doodling the dunes I saw earlier. Drawing's my thing, helps me process the road. But tonight, my pencil's shaky, and I keep glancing at the windows. It's too quiet, except for the waves, and that quiet's disturbing, like the calm before something awful. I'm thinking about my best friend, Sage, back in Bend. She'd say I'm nuts for parking in the middle of nowhere. She's all about RV parks with Wi-Fi, but I love the wild spots. Still, this place feels wrong, like I've trespassed on something I shouldn't have. I check the locks again, just to be safe, and sip more tea, but it's gone cold. I'm scrolling through my phone when I hear it. A low wail, not the wind, more like a voice. It's faint, coming from the beach. My heart skips, and I tell myself it's just the ocean playing tricks. I've camped in spooky places before, like that desert in Utah where I swore I saw a UFO. But this wail's different, human and sad, like someone's crying. It's the kind of scary that makes your skin prickle. I peek through the curtain, but the fog's so dense I can't see the dunes. The wail stops, then starts again, closer. I'm not a coward, but I'm gripping my mug like it's a weapon. Coos Bay's starting to feel like a horror movie set, and I'm the idiot who wandered off alone. I think about Darlene's warning again. She didn't seem like the type to joke. Her eyes were too serious, like she'd seen something. Was she trying to scare me, or does she know something? I'm half convinced she's out there, pranking me with friends, but that wail doesn't sound fake. I grab my flashlight and shine it out the window, but the beam gets lost in the fog. Bad move. Now I feel exposed, like I've announced my presence. I'm remembering a true crime show about people vanishing on Oregon's coast, never found. My gut's telling me to leave, but the rain's a deluge, and driving now feels like a gamble. I'm stuck, and that wail's getting louder. I dig out my journal and jot down what's happening, mostly to keep my hands busy. I write about Darlene, the wail, the fog. It's therapeutic, but my handwriting's messy, and I'm jumping at every sound. The waves are louder now, like they're trying to drown out the wail, but it's still there, weaving through the noise. It's disturbing, how it sounds like a woman calling my name. Juniper, drawn out and mournful. I'm sure I'm imagining it, but the fear's real. I think about my dad, how he'd tell me to tough it out when I was scared as a kid. Toughing it out's not working tonight. I'm wondering if I've bitten off more than I can chew with this spot. I crawl into bed, pulling the blankets tight, but sleep's not happening. The wail's relentless, and now I'm hearing footsteps, soft, like bare feet on sand. They're close, circling Mabel. My heart's in my throat, and I'm telling myself it's just the wind or an animal. But deep down, I know better. This isn't just a creepy night by the beach. Something's out there, and it's not friendly. I'm regretting ignoring Darlene, parking here, everything. The footsteps stop, and for a second, I think it's over. But the wail picks up, louder, right outside my van, and I'm frozen, knowing I've stumbled into something truly horrifying. I'm wide awake, heart pounding, as that wail cuts through the rain. I'm Juniper Callahan, parked near Bastendorf Beach in Coos Bay, and Mabel, my van, feels like a flimsy shield. The footsteps are back, slow and deliberate, crunching on the sand outside. I'm clutching my flashlight, but I don't dare turn it on again. Mabel's battery warning light's blinking. Great, now I'm worried she won't start. The rain's turned the ground to mud, and if I try to drive, I might get stuck. I'm torn between staying put and risking it. That wail's closer, almost at the door, and it's horrifying, like it's calling me out. I'm thinking of my friend Sage, how she'd say I'm an idiot for camping here. She's not wrong tonight. I checked the battery connections under the hood, but it's a nightmare in the dark. I'm no mechanic, Last time I fixed Mabel was a flat tire in Bend, and I had daylight. The rain's soaking me, and I hear that wail again, now mixed with a low hum, like voices joining in. It's disturbing, like a choir from hell. I slip back inside, locking the doors, but the footsteps circle closer. I'm wondering about Darlene, that waitress. Was she warning me or setting me up? Her creepy vibe stuck in my head, like she knew I'd end up here. I'm starting to think she's tied to this, maybe part of some twisted local game. The hum's louder, and I'm freaking out. I grab my pocket knife, feeling like a kid with a toy against a monster. The wail stops, and for a second, I think it's over. Then I see it, a figure in the fog, just beyond the dunes, swaying like it's dancing. It's tall, draped in something wet and ragged, and it's watching me. My blood runs cold. This isn't a prank, it's scary as hell. I'm thinking of that weeping woman myth, how she lures people to the ocean. Is that her? My phone's got no signal, so I'm cut off, alone. I'm cursing myself for ignoring Darlene's warning. I should have stayed in Bandon, but no, I had to chase adventure. Now I'm trapped, and something's very wrong. I'm debating whether to start Mabel and pray she doesn't die. The figure's still there, unmoving, and the hum's back, vibrating in my chest. I'm remembering a horror movie, The Wicker Man, where locals trap outsiders. Is that what's happening? Darlene and whoever's out there, playing me? I scribble in my journal, figure outside, humming, Coos Bay. Help. It's pointless, but it keeps me sane. The figure moves closer, and I swear it's a woman, her face hidden. My gut's screaming to run, but the mud, the battery, the fog, it's a death trap. I'm stuck, and the fear's choking me. I try the ignition, and Mabel sputters but catches. Relief floods me, but it's short-lived. The figure's right outside now, and I hear a soft knock on the window. My heart stops. I'm thinking of my dad, how he'd tell me to face my fears. Not this time, Dad. I'm not looking. I'm too terrified. The knock comes again, and a voice, raspy like Darlene's, whispers, "Juniper, open the door." How does she know my name? I'm shaking, gripping the wheel. This is horror on a whole new level, and I'm not sure I can outrun it. The humming's louder, like a crowd's gathering, and I know I'm in deep. I'm about to floor it when I notice my sketchbook's open, pages flapping like something touched it. I didn't leave it like that. My throat tightens. Someone's been in here. I check the back, but it's empty. Still, the feeling's disturbing, like I'm not alone. I'm thinking of a true crime case Sage told me about. People stalked in their campers. Was Darlene in my van? The figure's still outside, and now there's more, shapes in the fog, closing in. I'm out of time. I need to decide. Drive through the mud and risk getting stuck, or stay and face whatever's knocking. The whisper comes again. "Juniper, we need you." And I'm losing it. I slam on the horn, hoping to scare them off. The sound's deafening, but the figures don't flinch. Instead, the humming turns into a scream, high and piercing, like it's angry. I'm regretting that move big time. The knocking stops, but now I hear scratching, like nails on metal. It's terrifying, and I'm picturing that weeping woman, her face all wrong. I'm not waiting to find out. I shift into gear, praying Mabel holds up. The shapes are everywhere, and I'm driving blind into the fog, hard in my throat, knowing I've just pissed off something I can't outrun. This isn't just a bad night. It's a nightmare, and I'm not waking up. I'm flooring it through the fog, Mabel's tires slipping in the mud, but those shapes are still chasing me. I'm Juniper Callahan, stuck in Coos Bay's nightmare, and the screaming's so loud it's rattling my skull. The figures are clearer now. Women, all of them, with long, wet hair and faces like drowned corpses. It's horror straight out of a grave. The weeping woman's real, and she's not alone. They're gliding, not running, and they're everywhere, clawing at Mabel's sides. My headlights catch one's eyes, milky, blind, but locked on me. My stomach churns. Darlene's voice echoes in my head. "We need you." And I'm sure she's part of this. I'm driving blind, praying I don't hit the ocean, but the terror's got me by the throat. The road's a mess, and Mabel's engine's coughing like it's giving up. I'm thinking of my friend Sage, how she'd lose it if she saw this. The women's screams turn into chants, my name over and over. Juniper, Juniper, like a sick lullaby. It's disturbing how they know me, like I was chosen. I spot a figure ahead, standing still, and it's Darlene, her diner uniform soaked, smiling with teeth too sharp. My blood freezes. She's not human, not anymore. I swerve, nearly flipping Mabel, and hear a thud. Something hit the roof. I'm screaming, my voice raw, like that time I saw a cougar in Deschutes Forest. But this is worse, a scary I can't unsee. I grab my phone, hitting record, yelling, Coos Bay, Bastendorf Beach, they're after me. It's useless with no signal, but I need proof I'm not crazy. The chanting's louder, and the women are pounding the van, their hands leaving slimy streaks on the windows. I'm thinking of that shipwreck myth, how the weeping woman drowned with her crew. Are these her sisters, her victims? Darlene's still out there, laughing now, her voice cutting through the screams. I'm sure she lured me here, knew I'd park by the beach. My knife's on the floor, but it's a joke against these things. The roof creaks, and I'm terrified something's crawling up there. I see a sign for Highway 101, salvation maybe, but the women are relentless, and Darlene's voice is closer, like she's in the van. Join us, Juniper. She hisses, and I nearly crash from panic. I'm remembering a podcast about coastal cults, how they drown people for rituals. Is that what this is? My sketchbook's open again, and there's a new drawing, a woman's face, eyeless, that I didn't make. My heart stops. Someone, or something, was in here, and it's messing with me. It's horror beyond reason, and I'm losing my grip. The women's hands are at the windows, smearing something dark, like blood or seaweed. I blast the horn again, but it's a mistake. They scream louder, and Mabel shakes like they're trying to flip her. I'm thinking of my dad, how he'd say to fight, but I'm no match for this. Darlene's face appears at the side window, her skin gray and peeling, her smile a nightmare. You can't leave, she says, and the other women echo her, their voices a chorus of death. I'm crying now, snot and tears, like when I broke my arm as a kid. The highway's close, but the fog's thicker, and I'm not sure I'll make it. Something heavy lands on the hood, cracking the windshield, and I scream, swerving into the dark. I'm fighting to keep Mabel on the road, but the women are everywhere, their hands reaching through the broken windshield. My arm's bleeding from glass, and the pain's sharp, but I'm more scared than hurt. I'm thinking of Sage, how I promised to call her tomorrow. Tomorrow's not looking good. Darlene's voice is in my ear now, whispering, "You're ours." I don't know if it's real or in my head, but it's terrifying. The chanting's a roar, and I feel like I'm drowning, even on dry land. I'm almost at the highway, but the thing on the hood turns, and it's another woman, her face inches from mine, grinning with no lips. I'm done for if I don't shake her. I slam the brakes, hoping to throw her off, and hear a sickening crunch. The women pause, like they're shocked, but Darlene's laughter cuts through, cold and cruel. I'm back on the gas, tires spinning, and I hit the highway, the fog thinning just enough to see. The women are falling back, but I feel their eyes, like they're still with me. My phone's dead now, no more recording, and my sketchbook's gone, probably under the seat. It's disturbing how they've marked me, like I'm part of their game. I'm shaking, blood dripping, and I know this isn't over. Something's very wrong, and I'm not just running from them. I'm running from what they want me to become. I'm tearing down Highway 101, Mabel's engine screaming as I dodge the fog. I'm Juniper Callahan, and Coos Bay's turned into a horror show. The weeping women are still after me, their screams echoing like a pack of banshees. My windshield's cracked, blood's dripping from my arm, and I'm barely holding it together. I see their shapes in the rear view, gliding too fast, their wet hair whipping in the wind. Darlene's laughter's everywhere, like she's riding shotgun. I'm thinking of Sage, how I swore I'd be safe. Safe's a joke now. This is life or death, and I'm running on fumes. I swerve to avoid a shadow on the road, nearly flipping Mabel. My knife's gone, lost in the chaos, and I'm defenseless against this nightmare. Mabel's dashboard's lit up like a Christmas tree, overheating, low fuel, the works. I'm cursing myself for not checking her before parking by that damn beach. The women's hands slap the van, leaving slimy trails, and it's terrifying, like they're trying to crawl inside. I spot a side road toward Charleston, a fishing village. Maybe I can lose them there. I yank the wheel, tires screeching, and pray Mabel holds up. I'm remembering a time I outran a flash flood in Arizona, but this is worse, pure horror chasing me. Darlene's voice cuts through. You can't hide, Juniper. And I scream, my throat raw. The women are relentless, and something's still on the roof, clawing at the metal. The side road's narrow, lined with pines, and the fog's thinning, giving me a shred of hope. But the women don't stop. their chants pounding in my head. I'm thinking of that cult podcast again, how they trap people in rituals. Is Darlene their leader? I slam the brakes to shake the thing on the roof, hearing a wet thud as it rolls off. The chanting falters, but Darlene's laugh is louder, like she's enjoying the game. My arms throbbing, blood soaking my sleeve, and I'm lightheaded. I see lights ahead, Charleston's docks. If I can reach people, maybe I'm safe. But the women are closing in, and I'm not sure I'll make it. It's a scary gamble, and I'm all in. I burst into Charleston, skidding past boats and warehouses. The women hesitate, like the town's a barrier, but Darlene's voice is still there, whispering, "You're ours." I'm shaking, tears streaming, thinking of my dad's old advice to keep fighting. I spot a bar with neon lights and pull over, Mabel coughing as she dies. I stumble out, locking the door, and run inside. The bartender, a guy named Rory, sees my arm and grabs a towel. I'm babbling about women, Darlene, the beach, but he thinks I'm drunk. I'm not. This is real, and it's disturbing. The bar's crowded, but I feel exposed, like the women are watching. I'm safe, maybe, but not for long. Rory calls the cops, and I'm trying to explain without sounding insane. My phone's dead, no proof, and my sketchbook's gone, probably lost in Mabel. I'm thinking of Sage, how she'll never believe this. The bar's warm, but I'm freezing, shock setting in. Rory says people go missing around Bastendorf, but no one talks about it. That's not comforting, it's horrifying. I hear a faint wail outside, and my heart stops. Are they here? The other patrons don't notice, but I know better. I made it to Charleston, but I'm not free. Darlene's out there, and those women want something from me. The cops are coming, but I'm scared it's too late. I'm sitting by the bar, clutching the towel, when I notice my reflection in a mirror. My face looks wrong, pale, eyes too big, like I'm changing. My stomach twists. I'm remembering a ghost story Sage told me, how spirits mark you, make you one of them. Did they mark me? The thought's terrifying, and I'm fighting panic. Rory's talking, but I'm not listening. I hear footsteps outside, soft and wet, like bare feet. No one else reacts, but I know it's them. I'm thinking of my journal, how I wrote help. No one's helping, and I'm alone in a crowd. The wail's louder, and I'm sure they're coming for me. The cops pull up, lights flashing, and I'm relieved but paranoid. I tell them about Darlene, the women, but they're skeptical, saying it's probably kids pranking. Kids don't chase vans or crack windshields. I'm shaking, blood loss making me dizzy, and I'm regretting every choice. Parking by the beach, driving into the fog, everything. The bar feels like a trap now, and the wail's right outside the door. I'm thinking of my mom, how she'd hug me when I was scared. No hugs now, just survival. The cops want to check Mabel, but I'm terrified to go back. Something's waiting, and it's not human. I'm running out of time, and the horror's not done with me. The cops, a guy named Officer Tate and his partner, drive me to Mabel, parked by the bar. I'm Juniper Callahan, 32, and I'm falling apart, my arms stitched up, but my mind's a mess. Tate's asking questions, but I'm barely coherent, muttering about Darlene and the weeping women. They check Mabel, find the cracked windshield and slime, but no sketchbook, no proof. It's disturbing, how it's all gone, like the women erased it. I'm thinking of Sage, how I promised to visit. I should have stayed in Bend. My biggest mistake was thinking I could handle Coos Bay alone. Tate says Darlene's a local, works at the diner, no record. I know better. She's not what she seems. The whale's gone, but I feel watched, like I'm still theirs. Back at the station, they let me rest in a break room. I'm sipping bad coffee, trying to stay awake. My reflection in a window's wrong. My eyes are cloudy, like the women's. My heart races. I'm remembering that myth, how the weeping woman curses you, pulls you into her world. I thought I escaped, but I didn't. My mistake was stopping in Charleston, thinking people meant safety. I hear a hum, faint, like the one on the beach. It's in my head, and it's terrifying. I grab a pen, scribbling a note for Sage. Don't come to Coos Bay. They're real. I'm hoping she'll find it, but I'm not sure I'll make it. The hum's louder, and I'm losing myself. I sneak out, desperate to leave. The cops are busy, and I've got no phone, no van. Mabel's impounded for evidence. I'm on foot, heading for a bus stop, fog creeping back in. I'm thinking of my dad, how he'd say I'm tougher than this. I'm not. The hum's a chant now, and I see Darlene across the street, her face half gone, smiling. I freeze. She's holding my sketchbook, pages dripping wet. The twist hits. I'm not the victim. I'm the bait. They used me to lure others, and I brought the cops, Rory, everyone into their trap. It's horror I can't undo, and I'm the fool who fell for it. I run, but my legs are heavy, like I'm wading through water. The bus stops empty, fog swallowing the town. I'm gasping, the chant deafening, and my reflection in a puddle shows her, the weeping woman, not me. My mistake was fighting, thinking I could win. They wanted me to run, to spread their curse. I'm changing, skin graying, eyes blind. I'm screaming, but it's her voice, not mine. I think of Sage, how she'll come looking. She'll find my note, but it's too late. I'm gone. The women appear, circling, and Darlene's there, her laugh a knife. It's a tragedy, and I'm the carrier, doomed to lure others. My body's not mine anymore, and Coos Bay's my prison. I stumble to the beach, drawn by the chant, the ocean calling. My hands are webbed, slimy, and I'm crying. But it's not tears, it's salt water. I'm remembering a true crime case, how a town hid a cult's crimes. Coos Bay's hiding this, and I'm part of it now. My last thoughts of Sage, how I love her. I try to scream her name, but it's just a wail, joining the others. The women pull me into the surf, and I'm drowning, but not dying. It's gruesome, eternal, a fate worse than death. I'm the weeping woman now, cursed to haunt, to kill. My van life's over, replaced by horror that never ends. The waves close over me, and I'm gone, but not gone. I feel others, new voices, new victims, drawn by my wail. Rory, Tate, maybe Sage if she comes. My mistake was thinking I was free, but I'm their tool, spreading the curse. It's a tragedy beyond words, and I'm the monster I feared. I see Darlene in the depths, her face mine, smiling as we haunt. Coos Bay's secrets stay buried, and I'm trapped, forever chanting, forever luring. The ocean's my tomb, and every scream's mine, echoing in the fog. There's no escape, only horror, and I'm its voice, forever. I'm not Juniper anymore. I'm something else, a piece of the sea's wrath, pulling souls to their doom. The myth's real, and I'm its proof, a warning no one hears. My note's lost, my story erased, like I never was. The women's chants are my thoughts now, and I'm drowning in them, a pawn in their game. It's scary, how I thought I'd win, but I'm the tragedy, the twist that breaks hearts. Coos Bay claims another, and I'm its servant, wailing for the next fool who parks too close to the shore. Vanlife's a dream I lost, and this is my reality, eternal, cruel, and unending. Winds howling through the Columbia River Gorge as I park my van in Hood River. I'm Theo Warwick, 27 years old, and Salem's my home when I'm not roaming in my rig, a Chevy Express I call Luna. She's decked out, solar panels, a fold-out bed, and a coffee maker that's my lifeline. Hood River's all craft brews and windsurfers, but tonight, it's just me and the dark. I find a spot off a dirt road near Viento State Park, hidden by pines. It's probably not cool to camp here, but it's past midnight, and I'm wiped. I lock Luna's doors, crack a window for the breeze, and settle in with my guitar, strumming softly. Something about this place feels heavy, like the air's holding a grudge, but I shake it off. The gorge is wild, cliffs, rivers, and stories of weird stuff. I heard a tale at a Salem bar about a spirit here, the Lady of the Gorge, who haunts the river, pissed at loggers who wrecked her land. Sounds like folklore, but it's got my imagination going. Earlier, I grabbed a burger at a dive bar, and the cook, a guy named Vance, maybe 60, gave me the stink eye. He saw Luna and said, "Don't camp near the river, kid. Bad spot." His tone was off, like he was daring me. I laughed, but now, parked here, I'm wondering if I should have listened. The wind's picking up, and it's creepy, like it's whispering secrets. I strum a few chords, trying to chill, but my fingers fumble. I'm thinking of my roommate, Cass, back in Salem. She'd say I'm asking for trouble camping in the boonies. She's all about hostels, but I love the solitude. Tonight, though, solitude feels like a bad call. The wind's carrying a smell, wet earth and something sour, like decay. It's disturbing, and I'm checking my locks again. I'm not superstitious, but Hood River's got a vibe, like it's watching me. I pull out my notebook, jotting down lyrics about the gorge, but my heart's not in it. Something's off, and I can't pin it down. I hear a snap outside, like a branch breaking. My pulse jumps, and I stop playing. It's probably a deer, right? I've camped in sketchy spots, like that time near Sisters when a bear spooked me. But this snap's different, too sharp, like someone's out there. I peek through the curtain, but it's pitch black, just pines swaying. The wind's louder, and now I hear a low moan, not animal, more like a voice. It's scary, like something out of a horror flick. I'm telling myself it's just the gorge, wind through the rocks, but my gut's screaming otherwise. I grab my flashlight, but I'm not brave enough to shine it yet. Vance's warning stuck in my head. He didn't seem like the friendly type, more like he knew something and wasn't sharing. Was he messing with me? Or is he part of some local weirdness? Hood River's got that artsy vibe, but small towns hide dark sides. I'm thinking of a true crime doc about drifters vanishing in rural spots. My phone's got bars, so I text Cass. Hood River's creepy. Might bail. No reply. She's probably asleep. The moan comes again, closer, and it's definitely human, like someone's in pain. It's horrifying, and I'm regretting parking here big time. I dig out my pocket knife, feeling like an idiot, but it's all I've got. The moan's joined by footsteps, slow, dragging, like someone's limping. My heart's pounding, and I'm thinking of my mom, how she'd tell me to trust my instincts. My instincts are yelling to get out, but the wind's a gale now, and driving feels risky. I'm torn, stuck in Luna, which feels more like a trap than a home. The footsteps stop, and for a second, I think it's over. Then I hear a voice, faint but clear, saying, "Theo." My blood runs cold. How do they know my name? This isn't just a creepy night, it's something worse. I'm frozen, knife in hand, staring at the window. The moment's right outside Luna, and the footsteps start again, circling. I'm thinking of that lady of the gorge story, how she lures people to their doom. Is that what's out there? I'm not buying it, but the fear's real. I scribble in my notebook, Hood River, someone's outside, knows my name. It's a long shot, but if I don't make it, maybe Cass will find it. The wind's screaming now, and the voice says Theo, again, louder, like it's taunting me. I'm not sleeping tonight. Hell, I might not make it to morning. This place is disturbing, and I've stumbled into something I can't explain. I'm gripping my knife, heart hammering, as that voice whispers my name again. I'm Theo Warwick, parked near Viento State Park in Hood River, and Luna, my van, feels like a paper fort. The wind's a beast, rocking her, and those footsteps are back, dragging through the dirt. Luna's starter's been finicky lately. Last week in Salem, she took 3 tries to turn over. If I need to bolt, I'm not sure she'll cooperate. The moan's louder, almost a wail, and it's scary, like someone's dying out there. I'm torn. Stay put and hope it passes or risk driving in this gale. I'm thinking of Cass, how she'd say I'm nuts for camping here. That voice saying Theo isn't the wind. It's deliberate, and it's freaking me out. I check Luna's battery under the dash, my hands shaking. I'm no gearhead. Fixed a loose wire once in Eugene, but that's it. The footsteps stop, but now there's a scratching, like claws on Luna's side. It's disturbing, like something's testing her. I'm remembering Vance, that cook, his weird warning about the river. Was he setting me up? He knew I was vanlifing, saw Luna outside the bar. The wail's closer, and I swear it's a woman, her voice raw and angry. I'm thinking of that lady of the gorge myth, how she hates intruders. My phone's still got bars, but Cass hasn't texted back. I'm alone, and this is starting to feel like a horror movie trap. I crawl to the back, checking the locks, feeling like a sitting duck. The scratching's louder, and now there's a thud, like something hit Luna. My pulse is through the roof. I'm debating starting her, but the wind's tossing branches, and I could crash. Staying's worse, though, that voice knows me. I'm thinking of Vance again, how his eyes followed me. Is he out there, messing with me? Small towns like Hood River hide weirdos, right? I grab my flashlight, but keep it off. Last thing I need is to draw attention. The wail shifts, almost words, like "come out, Theo." It's terrifying, and I'm wondering if I've pissed off something I can't fight. I scribble in my notebook, voice knows my name, scratching, Hood River. Help. It's a long shot, but it keeps me sane. The thud comes again, and Luna shakes. I'm thinking of a true crime case Cass told me, about hikers vanishing in the gorge. Is this connected? The wail's right outside now, and I hear a laugh. Deep, human, not the wind. My blood runs cold. That's no spirit. It's someone real, maybe Vance. I'm kicking myself for ignoring his warning for parking here. My knife's a joke against whatever's out there, but I'm clutching it, praying Luna starts. The scratching stops, but the silence is worse, like it's waiting. I slide into the driver's seat, keeping low. The whale's back, and now I see a shape in the dark, tall, thin, moving wrong, like it's swaying. It's not clear, but it's there, just beyond the pines. It's horrifying, like the lady of the gorge stepped out of her story. I'm thinking of my mom, how she'd say to trust my gut. My gut's screaming to run. I try the ignition, and Luna sputters, then dies. Shit. I try again, my hands slick with sweat. The shape's closer, and the laugh comes again, closer, human. I'm sure it's Vance now, playing some sick game. The whale's joined by whispers, and I'm losing it, trapped in a nightmare. Luna finally catches, and I let out a shaky breath, but the shape's right outside, and the whispers are words. Theo, stay. I'm not staying, no way. I'm thinking of a time I got stuck in mud near Bend, how I dug out for hours. No time for that now. The shape bangs on the door, and I scream, my voice cracking. It's not just one. There's more, shadows moving in the trees. This is scary beyond belief, and I'm sure Vance is leading them. I shift into gear, ready to floor it, but the wind's a wall, and the road's a blur. The banging's louder, and I'm praying I make it out. I'm about to peel out when I notice my guitar's strings are snapped, like something yanked them. I didn't hear it happen. My stomach drops. Someone was in Luna. The thought's disturbing, like I've been watched this whole time. The shape's at the window now, and I hear Vance's voice, low and cruel. You shouldn't have come, Theo. My heart stops. He's out there, with whatever these things are. The whispers are a chorus, and the shape's face presses against the glass, pale and eyeless. I'm screaming, foot on the gas, but Luna's sluggish, and the road's a death trap. This isn't just bad luck, it's a setup, and I'm the target. I'm flooring it, Luna's tires spinning as I tear through the pines, but that eyeless face is burned into my brain. I'm Theo Warwick, stuck in Hood River's gorge, and this is horror like I've never known. The shapes are chasing me, their wails shredding the night, and Vance's laugh is everywhere, cold and sharp. They're not human, pale, twisted, with limbs too long, like the lady of the gorge brought her crew. My headlights catch one, its mouth stretched wide, no teeth, just black. My heart's exploding, and Luna's shaking, her engine screaming. The banging's relentless, hands slamming Luna's sides, and I hear Vance yell, Theo, you're mine. This isn't a prank, it's terrifying, and I'm in way over my head. The road's a nightmare, winding through the gorge, and the wind's throwing debris at my windshield. I'm thinking of Cass, how she'd freak if she knew. The shapes are keeping pace, gliding like they're not touching the ground, and their wails are my name, over and over. It's disturbing, how they know me, like I was picked. Vance's voice is closer, like he's in the van, whispering, you can't leave. I'm sure he's no cook. He's their leader, tied to these things. My notebook's open, words I didn't write. Stay with us. My blood runs cold. Someone's been in here, and it's not just spirits. This is a setup, and I'm the mark. I grab my phone, hitting record, yelling, Hood River, Viento Park, they're after me. No signal, but I need proof. The shapes are pounding Luna, their hands leaving cracks in the windows. I'm thinking of that lady of the gorge myth, vengeful, hating outsiders. These things are her, or worse. Vance's laugh turns to a growl, and I see him in the rear view, running with them, his face wrong, pale, eyes gone. My stomach lurches. He's not human either. Not anymore. I'm screaming, my throat raw, like that time I saw a car wreck on I-5. This is scarier, a horror show I can't escape, and Luna's my only shot. The shapes swarm closer, one clawing at the door, its nails screeching on metal. I'm remembering a podcast about gorge disappearances, how bodies wash up miles away. Is that my fate? Vance's voice cuts through. Join us, Theo. And the shapes echo him, their wails a sick chorus. I'm crying now, snot and all, like when I was a kid lost in a storm. Luna's engine's faltering, and I'm praying she holds. I spot a bridge ahead, maybe I can lose them there. But the shapes are on the roof now, their weight bending the frame. It's terrifying, and I'm sure Vance planned this, luring me to this spot. I'm not just fighting spirits, I'm fighting him. I swerve onto the bridge, the Columbia River roaring below. The shapes scream, like the water's pain, and Vance's voice is in my ear. You're hers now. Hers? The lady? I'm thinking of my mom, how she'd pray in crises. I'm whispering her old prayers, but it's useless. A shape smashes the side window, glass cutting my cheek, and blood drips. I'm lightheaded, panic choking me. The bridge is narrow, and Luna's slipping on wet pavement. I blast the horn, hoping to scare them, but they laugh. Vance's laugh, mixed with theirs. It's horror beyond reason, and I'm losing control, my hands shaking on the wheel. I make it across the bridge, but the shapes don't stop. One's in front, on the hood, staring with that eyeless face. I slam the brakes, hoping to throw it, but it clings, its mouth moving like it's speaking. My heart stops. I'm thinking of Cass, how I promised to jam with her. Not happening now. Vance's voice is everywhere. She chose you, Theo. Chose me. For what? The shapes are tearing at Luna, and she's dying, smoke pouring from the hood. I'm trapped, the river on one side, cliffs on the other. This is worse than scary. It's a death sentence, and I'm running out of moves. I'm hyperventilating, blood stinging my face, when I see lights, Hood River's outskirts. The shapes slow, like they're tied to the gorge, but Vance's laugh follows me. I'm thinking of a survival show, how noise can deter predators. I crank Luna's radio, blasting static, and the shapes flinch, but Vance screams, "You'll never leave." I'm almost to town, but Luna's coughing, and the shape on the hood turns, its face inches from mine. My screams drowned by the static, and I know something's very wrong. This isn't just a chase, it's a ritual, and I'm the sacrifice, caught in a nightmare I can't wake from. I'm screaming down the road, Luna's engine choking as I hit Hood River's edge. I'm Theo Warwick, and this is pure horror. The shapes, those twisted, eyeless things, are still after me, their wails like knives in my ears. Vance's laugh is everywhere, taunting, as the shape on the hood claws at the cracked windshield. My cheeks bleeding, glass in my skin, and I'm barely steering. The radio's blaring static, but it's not stopping them. I swerve, nearly hitting a guardrail, the Columbia River glinting below. I'm thinking of Cass, how I swore I'd make it home. Home's a fantasy now. This is life or death, and I'm running from something that doesn't quit. Luna's dying, smoke billowing, but I can't stop. The shapes are relentless, tearing at Luna's sides, their hands snapping metal. I'm aiming for downtown, hoping lights and people will save me. The wind's brutal, pushing Luna off course, and I'm remembering a time I outran a wildfire near Salem. This is worse, terrifying, like the gorge itself wants me dead. I see a gas station ahead, its neon a beacon. I floor it, but the shape on the hood lunges, shattering the windshield. Glass cuts my arm, blood soaking my shirt, and I scream, swerving. Vance's voice booms. "You're hers, Theo." Hers? The lady of the gorge? I'm praying, something I never do, but the shapes are closing in, and I'm out of tricks. I skid into the gas station, Luna's engine coughing its last. The shapes hesitate, like the lights scare them, but Vance's laugh doesn't stop. I stumble out, locking Luna, and run inside, blood dripping. The clerk, a kid named Milo, sees my face and freaks, calling 911. I'm babbling about spirits, Vance, the gorge, but he thinks I'm on something. I'm not. This is real, and it's disturbing. My phone's dead, no proof, and my notebooks and Luna, probably trashed. I'm thinking of my mom, how she'd hold me after nightmares. No comfort now, just survival. The shapes are outside, faint in the fog, and I feel their eyes, like I'm still prey. Milo hands me a rag for my arm, and I'm shaking, trying to explain. He's heard stories, hikers vanishing, blamed on the river. No mention of the lady, but I know she's real. The shapes are circling the station, their wails softer but there. It's scary, how they're waiting. I'm regretting every choice. Camping by Viento, talking to Vance, everything. Sirens wail, and I'm relieved, but Vance's voice whispers, "You can't hide," like he's in my head. I'm thinking of a true crime doc, how cults mark victims. Was I marked? The cops pull up, and I'm hoping they'll believe me, but I'm terrified it's not over. The cops, led by a woman named Officer Reyes, listen but look skeptical. I'm begging them to check the gorge, find Vance, but they think it's a prank or trauma. My arm's bleeding through the rag, and I'm dizzy, shock setting in. I'm thinking of Cass, how she'll kill me if I die. The station's bright, but I feel exposed, like the shapes are watching through the windows. A wail cuts through, and Milo jumps, proving I'm not crazy. It's horrifying how they're still here. Reyes says they'll patrol, but I know they won't find anything. These things aren't human, and Vance is their tool. I'm safe for now, but it's a lie, and I'm running out of time. I'm slumped in a chair, cops talking nearby, when I notice my reflection in the glass. My eyes look wrong, cloudy, like theirs. My stomach twists. I'm remembering a ghost story Cass told, how spirits claim you if you see them. Did I see too much? The thought's terrifying, and I'm fighting panic. Milo's watching me, spooked, and I hear footsteps outside, slow and heavy. No one else reacts, but I know it's them. I'm thinking of my notebook, how I wrote help. No help's coming. The wail's louder, right outside, and I'm sure they're coming for me. The cops want to take me to a hospital, but I'm scared to leave. I'm trying to stay calm, but the wail's in my head now, like it's part of me. I'm regretting blasting the radio, thinking it'd save me. It just pissed them off. The shapes are clearer outside, swaying like they're dancing. Vance's voice is back. She's waiting, Theo. I'm shaking, blood loss making me weak, and I'm thinking of my guitar, its strings snapped. Was that a warning? The cops are ready to move, but I feel trapped, like the station's a cage. The horror's not done, and I'm the target, caught in a game I can't win. I'm praying for a miracle, but the wail's all I hear, and it's calling me out. I'm in the cop car, Reyes driving to the hospital, but I'm falling apart. I'm Theo Warwick, 27, and Hood River's broken me. My arm's bandaged, but my reflection in the window's worse. Eyes like the shapes, skin too pale. The wail's in my head, constant, and Vance's laugh weaves through it. Reyes asks questions, but I'm mumbling about the Lady of the Gorge. She thinks I'm in shock, but I know the truth. I'm marked. My mistake was staying in Luna, thinking I could wait it out. I should have run at the first moan. They check Luna, find the cracked windows, but no notebook, no proof. It's disturbing, how it's all gone, like the gorge swallowed it. I'm thinking of Cass, how I'll never jam with her again. At the hospital, a nurse, Elena, stitches me up, her eyes kind but worried. I'm trying to explain, Vance, the shapes, the wail, but she nods like I'm delirious. My phone's gone, lost in Luna, and I feel cut off, alone. I'm thinking of that myth, how the lady claims souls for her river. I saw her, and now I'm hers. My biggest mistake was looking, shining my flashlight that first night. It drew her to me. The wail's louder, and I hear Vance. You're home, Theo. Home. The thought's horrifying, and I'm shaking, feverish. Elena says they'll keep me overnight, but I know I won't last. The shapes are outside. I feel them, waiting in the fog. I sneak to a bathroom, locking the door, desperate for a plan. My reflection's a nightmare. My face, but not mine, with eyeless sockets. I'm screaming, but it's the wail, not my voice. I'm remembering a true crime case, how a town covered up murders. Hood River's hiding this, and Vance is its keeper. I scribble a note on a paper towel. Cass, don't come to Hood River. Lady of the Gorge is real. I'm hoping she'll find it, but I'm fading. The twist hits. I'm not the victim. I'm her vessel. They didn't want me dead. They wanted me to carry her. It's horror I can't escape, and I'm the fool who walked into it. The wail's deafening, and I'm losing myself. I stumble back to the ward, but the lights flicker and Elena's gone. The hospital's empty, fog seeping through the halls. Vance is there, his face half melted, smiling. She's in you, Theo, he says, and the shapes appear, circling. My mistake was thinking I escaped. They let me reach town to spread her curse. I'm changing, hands claw-like, skin gray. I'm thinking of my mom, how I promised to call. I try to scream, but it's her wail, calling others. It's a tragedy, and I'm the carrier, doomed to haunt. The shapes pull me into the fog, and I'm gone, my note fluttering away, useless. I'm in the gorge now, the rivers roar my pulse. I'm not Theo anymore. I'm her, the lady, or part of her. My body's wrong, twisted, and I'm wailing, luring hikers, campers, anyone. I see Vance, his laugh my command, bringing me souls. My mistake was fighting, thinking I could win. I'm trapped, eternal, a piece of her wrath. It's gruesome, how I hunt, my old self screaming inside. Cass might come, find my note, but it's too late. Hood River's secrets stay buried, and I'm its servant, wailing for the next fool. The river's my cage, and every scream's mine, echoing in the wind. I feel others, new voices, new victims, drawn by my call. Milo, Reyes, maybe Cass. My guitar's gone, my music dead, replaced by this horror. I'm thinking of Salem, how I loved its quirks. Now I'm a ghost, a monster, spreading her curse. The shapes are my sisters, and Vance is our guide. His diner a trap for wanderers like me. It's scary how I thought I'd live free, but I'm enslaved, a tragedy in the gorge. My wail's endless, pulling souls to the river, and there's no escape, only pain, forever. The gorge claims me, and I'm its voice, a warning no one heeds. My notes lost, my story erased, like I never was. The lady's real, and I'm her proof, a pawn in her game. It's horror beyond death, and I'm the twist, the one who brings others down. Hood River's beauty hides this truth, and I'm its shadow, wailing for eternity. Vanlife's a dream I lost, and this is my reality, cruel, unending, and tied to the river's wrath. I'm gone, but my scream lives, calling the next soul to their doom.